Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Iron Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Energy Manipulation Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Inko, you can't keep treating him like this. He needs to be treated like a normal kid. You can't keep hurting him. Izuku lied on his side as they continued screaming. It seemed like they never stopped screaming now. I have to. If I don't show him what life is really like, then who will? If he doesn't learn to take the pain now, then he'll never learn. There was the sound of stomping and someone running after them. Inko, stop. Izuku jumped out of bed and climbed under it to hide. Let go of me, Hisashi. There was a yelp, then the sound of someone falling to the ground before the door was torn open. There was more stomping until it stopped in front of the bed. Come out now, honey, mommy wants to have another talk. Izuku was shaking under the bed. He hadn't even noticed the tears streaming down his face or slight whimpering. He saw the woman lean down with a wicked smile. Stop hiding from mommy, it hurts her feelings. She dragged Izuku out from the bed as he tried to get away. As she dragged him out of the room, he could see his dad lying on the ground, seeming knocked out. Daddy, get up, please. The woman only chuckled darkly as she continued to drag him. Now, Izuku, don't wake up your father. He thrashed harder until he decided to bite her hand. She yelped and let him go, giving him time to run over to his dad. Daddy, please wake up. He cried over the man, trying to shake him awake. He saw some blood come from the man's head. You're hurt. He tried to apply pressure like the man had taught him. He squeezed his eyes shut until he saw a white light. He opened his eyes to see the light coming from his hands and jumped back as his dad began to wake up. You brat. Izuku turned with his hands still glowing. He screamed as he saw the blade coming down before he could do anything. He screamed and put his hands over his eye as he screamed. He felt the skin pull itself together and the bleeding stopped before he passed out. Bunny? Are you okay? He slowly opened his eyes and saw he was in a car with his father leaning over him slightly. Daddy? He asked in a tired voice. His dad laughed a little and pulled him into a hug. Hi Bunny, how are you feeling? Can you see okay? Izuku looked around a little more and saw a few bags and other things in the back seat. I'm okay. And yet where are we? Izuku asked, a little scared now. It's okay, Zuku. I grabbed our stuff and we're gonna live elsewhere now, okay? Think of it like an adventure. Izuku got excited and began bouncing in his dad's lap. Really? Are we gonna fight bad guys and save people too? Hisashi laughed a little and nodded his head. You bet, my little hero. Screaming. That's all Izuku could hear. Screaming people and crying. He just wanted everyone to be quiet. He hated screaming. He hated the crying. Izuku. He jolted up and began looking around, but why was everything dark? He could still see outlines of people and things, even small details, but there wasn't any color or depth to it. There was another crash followed by screaming. He looked around trying to see clearly. Someone was calling his name. Where was he? Who was calling his name? He put his arm down so he could stand. Where was his other arm? Izuku. The person was in front of him now, sounding panicked. Dad? Izuku asked, still a little confused. Yes. Bunny, can you see me? Hisashi asked. Yes. Dad, what's happening? He asked, joking on his own sobs. I'm sorry, Bunny. I'm not sure. I need you to get out of here, okay? I need to still help people in there, so run home and wait for me there. Izuku didn't get to say much as Hisashi put him down and pushed him slightly. I love you, Bunny. Now run. Izuku waited. He waited for days. He waited for his dad to walk through to the door. He waited for his sight to come back fully. He waited to have his flesh arm back. But there wasn't a point in waiting. There wasn't a point since the list of people found didn't have Hisashi, since his sight was altered, since he was taught to build support items. He wasn't waiting any longer, not when he could search and help. Please. I'll give you anything. Just let her go. A teen screamed as he tried to keep his quirk under control. The man put the knife closer to the girl's throat as he laughed. The laugh didn't last long though, as a blue light seemed to swing around and wrap itself around the man's arm before being yanked back, making him fall. "Hey! Let me go!" The man tried tugging on the light but was shocked. A figure appeared with a blue glow almost surrounding them. They wore skin-tight black suit that stopped at their shoulders, neon blue joggers with white seams, black fingerless gloves, white shoes with black soles and blue flaps, a blue and white crop tank top, a black metal mask with blue lights coming from it, a black visor with blue dots for eyes, and a black flat bill cap. Though that wasn't the most eye-catching thing, what was though was the two arms that looked like robot arms. Of course it's the Robo Beach. The blue whip retracted to the right arm as the person stalked closer. "Well, if you want to fight so bad, let's dance." The man got into a weak fighting stance with the knife aimed at the person. The person didn't move though, they seemed almost frozen. At least until the man ran at him and tried to slice the person, only to be blocked by one of the arms. They shifted, sending the man's arm down before bringing their other arm up and punching the man hard enough to send him back against the wall and pass out. "Oh my God! That was so cool!" The girl yelled as she ran up to the person. The person seemed shocked and even jumped a bit. "My name's Toga Himiko. Thanks for saving me." She hugged the person, seeming to shock them even more. "Himiko, let the kid go, he helped us, no need to suffocate him." The other teen commented with a roll of his eyes. They looked at the two in confusion before pulling off his mask and putting his visor to sit on top of his hat. Daughter, you too, okay? Do I need to walk you home or something?" The boy asked, not used to actually talking to people. "Really? You do that? That's so nice." She turned to the male. "Tia, we're keeping him." She hugged the boy again, confusing him. "We can't steal kids, that's against the law." "Technically I'm going against the law, so that's not a good argument." The boy pointed out, making Tuya look betrayed. "You don't want us to steal you?" he asked, making Himiko laugh. "Well, no. That's not something you answer with another question, kid." "Zuku, where did you put the remote?" Himiko yelled from the living room. "Don't ask me. Tuya had it last." Izuku called back as he climbed through one of the windows. "On the table to the left." Tuya answered as he finished making food. He picked up the piece of metal, letting the light reflect off of it as he turned it over to look at it fully. After a second of looking at it, he added it to his bag that laid next to him. He stood up, grabbing his bag, and walked off of the beach and onto the sidewalk. When he got to a busier area, he watched as the lights passed by him with some familiarity of the streets. After a couple blocks, he turned down an alleyway and looked for the rusted ladder. The white light outlining the object enough for him to see it and grab onto it to climb. He pulled himself up and made it to the roof of the abandoned building where the rest of his belongings sat by the metal door. Grabbing one of the other bags, he pulled out a computer and opened it, revealing a braille keyboard. He was glad that he could still see the light of the screen. He opened a file and cataloged the metal and supplies he had gotten that day from the beach that's now a dump. He had been working to clean it while he used it for parts. He stopped his typing when he heard his phone go off. He picked it up, seeing the name, Himiko. He smiled at it before answering. "Hey Himiko, is everything okay?" he asked in a quiet voice. He heard a giggle on the other line and a groan. "No, silly," he heard another groan, making him chuckle. "We wanted to know if you've gotten into the support course yet." He sighed playfully. "No, I haven't, Himiko, but I should be getting it today, so when I find out I'll call you and Tuya, okay?" "Fine." She dragged the word out while whining. "Toga, leave the kid alone." He heard Tuya yell over the phone. "Shut up, do it." "Don't worry, Zuzu, I know," she assured him. They soon both said goodbye before hanging up. Izuku stood up on the roof and stretched for a minute before moving his stuff into a hiding spot. He looked over the edge to see the ladder again and held onto it as he jumped and slid down it. He walked along the road until he came to a familiar building with some cracks but still in a good shape. He opened the door and walked in, being greeted by the old man. "Midoriya. Good to see ya, kid." The man froze, realizing what he said. "Sorry, kid." Izuku chuckled lightly and waved his hand. "Don't worry, Daichi, you know I'm okay with jokes." The old man smiled, not that Izuku could see though. "I know, Midoriya, but it's still awkward." He watched as the man walked back and grabbed a letter. "Here, this came in earlier today." Looks like someone got into UA. Izuku blushed slightly and nodded while grabbing the letter. Thank you, Daichi, have a nice day. He waved to the man who waved back, knowing Izuku could see his movements. Izuku approached the what he considered lively apartment where he heard the two arguing still. Cool it, Toga. No, you flame beach. He opened the door with a small smirk, since he had a key, and tapped on the door frame, getting their attention. Zuzu. Hey kid. He smiled and hugged Toga back as she tackled him. Hi Himiko, hi Tuya. He let go of the girl, letting her step back and look at him. I got the letter. Figured you'd want to open it with me. Toga squealed while Tuya huffed but nodded his head. They opened the envelope to find two letters, one written in Braille while the other was written in Japanese. Tuya and Toga looked shocked while Izuku was confused. What is it? Did I not get in or something? The two shook their heads. No, it's not that, it's just they sent one in Braille for you to read. Tuya handed the Braille one over to the boy, letting him read it with his fingers while the other two read the other. Izuku had finished reading before they did and he wanted to scream. He had gotten into his dream school. Yes. He yelled once he had processed everything, making the other two smile. Good job, kid. Tuya walked over and hugged Izuku. It wasn't a secret that the three were touch-starved and often took any chance they got to touch in some way, so hugs like this were normal. This is going to be great. You can make so many cool things. Like the armor for your vigilante outfit. And the pretty headphones with cat ears and the dash. Both smiled as she continued to mention a lot of the stuff he had made for them after they had met. Okay, brat, he gets it. He knocked her on the top of her head, making her glare at him before turning back to Izuku. We are going out to celebrate you getting in with a nap and some dinner. Izuku smiled brightly, reminding the two of the sun, hearing that they were going to celebrate with him. He loved taking naps since it usually turned his quirk off enough for it not to hurt his head too much, and it was usually hard to sleep on the streets with underground heroes all over the place. Nap time. Toga tackled the two onto the couch, letting Izuku be closest to Tuya, who was naturally always warm, and with her snuggling into him. Aizawa looked over the alley, looking for anything suspicious. He had run into one of his informants who had just walked one of his kids home and decided to tell him what he had learned. Aizawa wasn't dumb. He had recognized the old Todoroki right away and often check in on the now adult to make sure he hadn't died yet. Anytime he talked to Dabi, he would always bring up his two kids and how they were doing. Anytime the hero asked to at least meet one of the kids, he only was reminded of the time he met the oldest of the two, known as Toga. Dabi, I've met Toga, why can't I meet your little pride and joy? Aizawa said almost sarcastically. He was interested in the kid. Dabi had talked highly of him more than anything. Because you'll scare him, Dabi said with a slight glare. Aizawa quirked an eyebrow, making the other sigh. The kid is different from me and Toga. He's been through some rough shit. Considering what you've told me life was like for you and Toga before you both ran away, then the kid must have gone through hell. Dabi nodded his head in agreement. You'd be right in that. He's been on the street since he was 6. He knows ins and outs that even me and Toga don't know. Hell, half the information on people's quirks come from him. Smart kid, but I'm sure you'll meet him. Aizawa looked at the other confused. And how's that? He got into UA. Aizawa didn't want to deal with a problem child like the one Dabi had described to him before, but he did want to help the kid. He personally wouldn't take in the kid, but Midnight had been looking for someone to adopt that was old enough to take care of themselves, so maybe the kid would go with her. But he had dealt with street kids and runaways before, didn't trust easily, and didn't like adults. Izuku was nervous. It was going to be his first day and he didn't know what it would be like at all. If the class knew he couldn't see, would they treat him like glass? Would they ignore him like he had been before? He didn't know, and he didn't really want to find out if it was going to be bad. He took a deep breath in as he put the rest of his work clothes into his bag to change into if he wanted or needed to. It was a simple black tank top with a navy blue jumpsuit, black gloves, and a pair of goggles he had made that could project his own light to see smaller details and blueprints for him to see. He then pulled his hair into a small ponytail with his bangs still out, shading his face slightly. He couldn't afford a haircut, so Toga had shown him how to put it into a small ponytail that apparently looked cute on him. Fixing his tie one last time, he finally turned around to the two sitting on the couch watching TV. How do I look? The two looked over, one standing up and tying the tie correctly while Toga squealed about how cute he looked in the outfit. Okay, that's better. The older stepped away looking up and down before nodding his head. You look ready to raise hell, kid. What are you talking about? He looks adorable. Toga cried, holding the younger to her chest. Sorry if I think the kid that has a robot arm that can make an energy knife is scary. He yelled, throwing his hands up in the air. He looked around the area in front of him. All the lights seemed to be buzzing with joy or nervousness. He walked forward trying to guide himself to his room. It didn't work as he soon found himself lost. Hey! He jumped a little trying to suppress it as a light approached. You lost? He nodded his head with a small smile. Yeah, I'm looking for 1H. The person's light buzzed even more before the girl spoke. Really? Here, let's go together. She grabbed his hand, leading him to the room they needed to go to. Thanks. Hatsum May at your service. Thanks, Hatsum. I'm Midoriya Izuku, but you can call me Izuku if you want. He never really did like his last name. Well, then you can call me May, Izuku. Izuku liked the girl's light. It reminded him a little of Himiko's but more buzzing. It scared him a little with how loud and chaotic she seemed, but he could deal with it. I'm okay, May, thank you for showing me to the room. He said as they continued to walk to where he hoped the room was. No problem, Izuku. You seem like a fun person. Izuku blushed but smiled at her. Thanks. To people, Hatsum seemed like someone that didn't understand people but only machines, and while it was kinda true, she was still observant of people. So it wasn't hard for her to notice when Izuku jumped when she was too loud and jumpy. She also noticed his eyes pretty easily. His eyes looked like a milky green that still seemed to sparkle like gems. At first she thought it was just the color, but hearing him say he was lost when there was a map right next to him, she figured out the fact that he was blind pretty quickly. Okay, here we are, Izuku. She said a little quietly. Now seeing him look a little calmer, she opened the door for him, letting him step inside. Thanks, May, again. He said, rubbing the back of his neck a little awkwardly. No problem, Izuku. Actually, you know what? I'm calling you Zuku, sounds cuter. She smirked, seeing the boy blush a little but nod his head anyway. Well then I'll call you Mimi. He said in a quiet voice, making the girl smile. That's so cute, Zuku. I know we're going to be best friends. Izuku smiled as the girl hugged him, hugging her back. He laughed quietly, letting Hatsum know about his amusement. Oh, there's only two of you right now. Both turned to the voice. Izuku, seeing a yellowish-gray light, seeing Power Loader. Well, I'm Power Loader and I'll be your teacher this year. Go ahead and change into the extra clothes you brought. Bathrooms are over there. They both nodded and headed to the separate bathrooms while Power Loader left again to get everyone's files. When they stepped out, Hatsum gasped at his outfit. He wore a black tank top, a navy blue jumpsuit with the top sleeves tied around his waist, a pair of black gloves, and steampunk-looking goggles sitting on his head. Zuku, you look adorable. Izuku turned to her with a blush again and began trying to stutter out something to say to her. Oh, don't worry, Zuku, I know you can't see me. The boy looked a little surprised at that. Oh well, that I sorta can see you? My quirk is an energy type and allows me to see people and objects as lights, so I can see you, just not detailed is all. Hatsum gasped again. That's so cool. And useful. Izuku thanked her for the compliment as they walked back into the workshop. When they walked in, Izuku immediately perched himself onto one of the empty workshop tables with Hatsum sitting next to him on a different table. I wonder what our other classmates will be like. Izuku thought out loud, with Hatsum nodding along with it. Not long after, more people began to come into the room and change into their clothes. Okay everyone, I'm Power Loader, the teacher for the support class. In here we'll be making weapons, armor, suits, and other support equipment. First things first though, I'm gonna let you all talk to each other and share ideas you have. They all cheered while Izuku was a little nervous. May hadn't mentioned his arm, but someone probably would. Hi, my name is Ash. Cool arm. Did you make it yourself? The girl turned to him excitedly. Izuku was lost for a second. Oh, my name's Midoriya Izuku, but I prefer Izuku, and yes. He answered the last part like a question. That seemed to get the class's attention though. Whoa, really? Can it do anything? one of the others asked. He jumped a little but nodded. It can act like a radio, a phone, I can store small stuff in it, and it has Bluetooth. He added the last part with a laugh. It was Toga's idea for him to add it. Wait, why Bluetooth? One of the others asked. One of my siblings wanted me to add it, so I did. He tried to think of what the two were to him. Wait, can we play music from it? Ash asked with a wicked grin. It should be called Black Box. Someone pulled out their phone and connected to it before playing a song. Once it started playing, everyone started laughing at the look on Power Loader's face. Who's playing music? He asked. No one said a word but tried not to laugh. Izuku hit a button and the music started playing louder from what seemed like different areas in the room. Sorry, sir, it's playing from my device. Izuku admitted, sending a wink to the group. Well, hand it over. Of course. Without the teacher noticing, he took his arm off and put it in the teacher's hand. Once the teacher realized, he screamed, making everyone break out into laughs. It was only the second day of class and they already had a project for them to do. They had to create the costumes for the Hero Course 1A for the battle trial in the coming week. They all had to be assigned to groups, or partners in Hatsum and Izuku's case, to work on the different costumes. Before they got into making the costumes, though, they had to create symbols to put on the clothing to show that they made it. Most of the class already had one, but Izuku didn't. How could he if he couldn't necessarily see it? Right now the class was helping Izuku come up with one since they had already helped the others. How come you haven't made one yet, Izuku? Akabane asked, leaning on one of the desks. Well, I didn't think of one because I can't exactly see. The class was silent until Ino broke the silence. What? Well, I'm blind, but my quirk is an energy quirk that lets me see people as colors and lights. That's another reason for my goggles. He tapped the equipment on the top of his head at the moment. They sort of project my own energy onto objects that I need to see and allow me to see blueprints since technology gives off its own energy. The class was silently looking at him in amazement. Who wants to join my religion? The class looked to Akihiro for a second. It's called Izuku is a god. The class laughed while the boy blushed a little. Okay, back on topic, Hatsum said, clapping her hands. We need to get an idea for Zuku. The class began writing and saying ideas out loud while Izuku went through the ideas on his own. At the end they had one finished idea, a 6-pointed star with a solar flare behind it. What do you think? The class looked at him in anticipation. I love it. Izuku and Hatsum had been assigned 2 Hero Course students, one with a creation quirk and the other with a brainwashing quirk. The info the two gave for the support department was lacking and almost annoying. Come on, Zuku, let's go talk to them. They gave us almost no information on what they wanted. Hatsum whined while sliding down her chair. I know, Mimi, but what if we're interrupting them or something? Hatsum had learned fast that Izuku had a lot of anxiety when it came to other people. If you two go now, they'll be able to come down here and explain a few things. Power Loader interrupted, walking over to them. Are you sure, Power Loader Sensei? Izuku asked. Of course, Izuku, I'll notify their teacher. Go ahead and get them. Hatsum cheered and grabbed Izuku, dragging him out of the room and into the hallway. Jima Toizawa. My Jima. The gods have chosen to talk to 2 of your students. Aizawa, which ones and why? My Jima. I think Shinsuo Hitoshi and Yaoyorozu Momo because of their costumes. My students like to be called Izuku and Hatsum. Aizawa looked up from his phone and sighed, getting the attention of some of the students but none saying anything. There was a knock at the door, getting their attention. Come in, he said tiredly. The door opened, revealing 2 teenagers, a girl with pink hair, welding mask on her head, a tracksuit, and gloves going to her elbows. The boy had dark, almost black-blue hair, goggles sitting on his head, a jumpsuit with the top tied around his waist, and black gloves, though the most noticeable part was the prosthetic arm. Izuku and Hatsum, correct? He asked, getting a small nod from the boy and a loud, yep, from the girl. We're here to talk to Creation Girl and Brain Boy. Izuku looked at Hatsum, offended, before yelling at her. Mimi, they have names. The girl waved her hand dismissively at him and looked back to Aizawa. Right? He turned to the class again and pointed to Yaoyorozu and Shinsuo. It's a free PRD at the moment, so you two can talk to them here. Izuku looked a little nervous while Hatsum nodded and walked over to the two. Izuku, you can talk to her and I'll take brain guy, Shinsuo. Right. Izuku walked over to where Aizawa had pointed. Luckily the girl got his attention. I'm Yaoyorozu. He looked at the light, seeing it as a red color. Hi Yaoyorozu, my name's Midoriya Izuku, but call me Izuku if you want. I'm from the support class and we were asked to do your costumes. The only issue is you didn't really give a description of what you wanted, so I wanted to make sure I get it right for you. Yaoyorozu nodded her head. Well, my quirk is called creation. I'm able to create anything I know the composition of from the lipids in my body. Her voice got a little quieter, so I need parts of my body exposed, so something sort of revealing. Izuku understood why she got quieter now. Oh, I see. He tapped his chin for a second. Well, it wouldn't actually have to be something revealing. It could be made of the same material of Midnight's uniform. After all, each time she uses her quirk, she can't just get a new one. He explained. Really? You could? Yep, it can also have holders for you to put objects you make into it. Some sort of armor over vital parts would be a good idea too, and dash. The group watched silently as he went over ideas he had for the costume. I completely trust you, Izuku. Yaoyorozu said, making him snap out of his rant and blush slightly. Oh, thanks Yaoyorozu. Please call me Momo. Oh, thanks Momo, I'll make sure it's good. He turned to Hatsum and pointed to where he saw the light on the door. I'm gonna head back, Mimi, good luck. Tell me when you want to start working. You got it, Zuku. Izuku sewed the bullet and knife-repelled fabric, finishing the red crop top. So far he was almost done with Momo's suit. He had the red top, rose beige shorts, and black combat boots. He was going to add a cloak for warmth and possible coverage if needed. He had also made a similar bodysuit to Midnight's suit but made it proper for the girl he met. If it was ripped it would repair itself. He was going to help Hatsum on Shinsuo's since the girl was having trouble with the capture weapon material. They had also created 2 stamps for each of the students to use to mark their items. They had one for fabric that you could simply add ink to, while the other was for metal where it heated the stamp and would put itself onto the metal as a brand. He hoped that the girl would like it since Hatsum had helped him with the coloring of the clothes. Okay, now that you're done, help me. Hatsum yelled, throwing fabric at him too fast for him to see it properly. Sorry, Mimi. He picked up the fabric and had his goggles analyze the material in comparison to the original. Well, this needs to be stronger, so try doubling up on the fabric material, then it should be good. Hatsum started working right away. It had been almost 3 days since they had visited the class and it was almost time for the students to pick up their costumes, well, just Momo and Shinsuo's. It was likely that Shinsuo would have to use the first version of the weapon. Hello. Izuku turned quickly to the door. He hadn't had his quirk on full spectrum since he was only working on a project, so he was surprised at the sudden appearance. He was glad that he recognized Momo's color though. Oh Momo, just in time, put this on. Izuku said excitedly, handing over the new clothing. The girl nodded her head and went to the changing rooms. At some point Shinsuo came in and Hatsum did the same to him, but he wasn't paying attention. What do you think, Momo? Izuku asked. He honestly didn't really know what it looked like, but Hatsum seemed to think it looked awesome. It's amazing, Izuku. The girl said, spinning a little. I'm so happy you like it. There are a few things I need to explain, but it should be fine until you have time, okay? The girl nodded her head and left, going back to her class with Shinsuo following. You did good, Zuku. Let's start working on Brain Boy's capture weapon. His name is Shinsuo. Izuku looked over the edge of the building. He missed this honestly. It had been a while since he had really gone out and watched over his part of the city. Well, it wasn't his city, but he thought of it as his. He had also missed running around and fighting villains. He usually stuck to low lifes though, so he didn't get too much attention. He was helping with some new information that Dabi needed and a few low lives he had been after for a little while now. He pulled the hat down more as he saw the black-tinted lights walk into the alleyway. Come on man, let's get this over with. We need to get rid of him tonight and that stupid kid. Izuku didn't like the sound of that. It sounded like they were going after a possible family. He waited for a moment until he knew he could get the drop on them. He jumped down, knocking out one of the men as he fell off of the building. He no longer had surprise, but he still kept quiet. It's the brat. One of the men shouted, throwing a punch at Izuku. Quickly thinking, Izuku raised his arm and sent energy through his arm, having a shield appear. It continued like that until Izuku was able to take down the 3 men. He kept one awake. "Who are you going after?" The man didn't answer but looked terrified. Izuku raised his arm, smashing his fist into the wall beside him. "Tell me," he asked quietly. Okay. "Someone hired us to go after you and erase your head." Izuku glared at him. "They wanted you guys out of the picture, okay? Apparently something big is happening in the underground and they want you 2 out so you can't stop it." Izuku nodded his head and stepped away, letting the man think he was getting away before turning and punching the man, making him pass out. He stood up and was about to turn until he saw a new color enter the area. "And who are you?" He turned to the person talking, confused. Most people that lived around here or in the underground knew him as Void. His arms were pretty noticeable. "Void," he stated before pulling the energy back, making the blue weapons disappear. "No, Void is a vigilante mostly in the underground. You're a baby with robot arms." Izuku wanted to sound offended, but he wasn't really wrong. The only thing noticeable about him as Void was the armor, really. "Who are you?" he asked. "If you were Void, I would assume you would know who Erase Your Head was." Izuku froze. He now recognized the colors and connected them. He had seen Erase Your Head around before, and then seeing his color next to the 1A teacher, he wanted to panic. "Hard to see at night," was all he said. Void was known for being silent and quick about things. Most people thought it was because he wanted to be mysterious, but it was actually because he had trouble talking to people in general. "You definitely have the quiet aspect and weapon, but you're still a baby in a hoodie, kid. How about you come with me?" Izuku looked at the outstretched hand before meeting eyes with the pro. "Something's happening in the underground. They want me and you out so we can't stop it. Keep an eye out," Izuku said before he ran away before Aizawa could go after him. On nights where Aizawa heard something from someone other than his main informant, Dabi, he would always go to question the adult to see if he heard anything. So he headed to the boy's apartment to figure out what had happened. Usually after Izuku had a rough or late night, he would go over to Dabi and Toga's apartment to rest and sleep. So Dabi and Toga weren't surprised when he changed from his vigilante outfit into a simple hoodie Dabi had gotten him and sweats before clinging onto Dabi like a teddy bear. Dabi laid on the couch while Izuku slept on him, and Toga sat on one of the other couch cushions while they watched TV, at least until there was a knock at the door. "Toga, can you get the door, please? I don't want to wake the kid." Toga smirked at him before taking a picture, much to his dismay. "My name's Dabi and I don't feel emotions. But if it's Izuku, I'll kill someone," she teased in a fake deep voice while waving her hands. Toga went over to the door and opened it slowly. They didn't get someone late unless it was Izuku or Aizawa, maybe a different hero, but Aizawa was always with them. "Oh, Aizawa, what has you out this late?" Toga asked, letting him into the hall. She wanted to laugh since Aizawa hadn't seen the way Dabi acted around Izuku. "I ran into someone claiming to be Void. He said that people in the underground wanted me and Void out of the picture, so we couldn't stop anything." Toga now understood why the kid was clinging to Dabi. He already had really bad anxiety as is, but hearing that would make him panic and need a moment to be calm, and he felt the most comfortable with Dabi and Toga, though mostly Dabi, which she didn't mind. "Oh, I see. Doesn't sound cute at all. But Dabi won't be much help if he's dealing with our little sunshine." Toga cheered quietly, confusing the older man. "You mean Dabi's gonna let me actually meet the kid?" Aizawa asked with a little smirk. "Nope. But he's sleeping on Dabi at the moment and Dabi won't move until the baby wakes up. Even then, he has really bad anxiety and PTSD, so he feels safest when he's with us or someone he trusts." Aizawa was a little confused. If the kid was one of Dabi's information gatherers, why was he letting the poor kid out with the issues he seemed to have? "Toga huwa dash." Dabi stopped talking when he made eye contact with Aizawa. "If I didn't have a sleeping child on me, I would kill you where you stand, brat," he whispered through gritted teeth. He was about to say something more until Izuku stirred before laying back down. Aizawa recognized the kid almost right away. It hadn't been long since he had seen him in the classroom, but Maijima complained about him and handsome enough that he didn't forget. "Is that Midoriya Izuku from the support department?" Aizawa asked, already knowing the answer. "No." Aizawa glared at the black-haired adult. "Okay, yes it is, but if he wakes up because of something, cause I'm not telling you shit for a week." Aizawa's eyebrows lifted up. Any time he had heard about Dabi saying that he usually kept it. Fine, but why is he here and not at home? Aizawa thought he already knew the answer but hoped it wasn't that. This is the kid I've been talking about since I've been your informant. He gets the information from the streets and underground. So he's homeless. Toga nodded her head while Dabi glared. Dabi, he goes to you. I have to tell the school even if he isn't in my class. Toga and Dabi both glared at the man with Toga taking a step forward since Dabi couldn't move at the moment. Aizawa, if you even ask him about it he'll bolt and it could end up worse. We've talked to him about even living with us and he says no. So how do you think he'll react when someone he doesn't know or trusts confronts him about it? Aizawa had dealt with street kids before but never at the school. Okay, I'll leave it alone, but if something happens we're going to you as his guardian. Dabi nodded his head and calmed down. He knew that Izuku's quirk was still active and if they all reacted too much it'll wake him up. Now I need to know if you've heard anything about what's happening in the underground having to do with me and Void. Izuku felt warm when he started to wake up. He didn't open his eyes, however, when he heard a familiar voice. It's probably an organization then, but why would they want me and Void out of the way? He slowly began to stir and opened his eyes. Tuya? He asked, sitting up, fully getting their attention. Hey kid, you okay? Izuku nodded his head. He ran his hands through his hair and sighed heavily before getting up and walking to the kitchen. It's not my fault he woke up. He heard the voice say. It sounded so familiar to him but he couldn't put his finger on it. He walked back into the living area and sat on the couch next to Dabi, not even looking up. Wait. He looked up and stared at the light in front of him. Aizawa-sensei? Izuku was trying to act calm. Had the man learned that he was a vigilante? Was he going to be kicked out of the school? Izuku, the man turned his attention back to Dabi. So it's a possible organization that wants me and Void out? So who's the leader? It clicked in Izuku's head that the man was here due to what he had told him as Void. We don't know, he said, getting all their attention. What I do know is a name for a leader and a group that's been going around recently. Shigaraki and the League of Villains. It's most likely the same group that wants you out. He turned to Dabi and smiled a little awkwardly. Sorry I hadn't told you all that yet. Quirk went overdrive and I needed to sleep. Dabi ruffled his hair with a smile. Don't sweat it kid, you were stressed. Dabi leaned back a little. Besides you're staying here for tonight instead of heading out. Izuku nodded his head, not thinking about it much. Thanks for the info Dabi. Izuku, I need to leave. Aizawa then walked back to the front and left. The next day when Izuku and Hatsum were working in class they were a little surprised to see two of the hero students. Well, Hatsum had to tell him who they were. Izuku, Hatsum, this is Ida Tenya and Shinsuo Hitoshi. They need some of their gear fixed. Power Loader Sensei, wouldn't it be better if the original designer for Ida worked on his uniform? Izuku asked a little confused. Sure, he didn't mind the extra work but he didn't want to steal someone else's. Don't worry Izuku, it was mine. He recognized the voice as Akihiro. As long as you're sure. He turned back to the two with a smile. Well, since Mimi did yours Shin, so she'll help you, and Ida, you can come with me. He walked over to his bench and pulled up a blueprint of the uniform. So what are you looking to have fixed, Ida? Izuku smiled at him, innocently catching the boy a little off guard. Well, my chest plate was damaged. I was hoping for a better metal to replace it to make it more durable. Izuku nodded his head and looked through the metal he was able to use for it. Got it, it'll take a while to help replace it and we'll want it to have it on vital points and possibly replace the entire thing with it. You might also want better material under the armor so you're less likely to be injured if something were to happen. Your helmet could also use an upgrade, lenses so you can see infrared and night vision, a communicator maybe, something able to send a distress signal, thing like that. How does that sound? Ida stared at the boy for a second before he finally answered. It sounds quite complicated. Are you sure? Izuku jumped a little at the loud voice but nodded his head with a smile. Of course. I'll get the helmet and chest piece done by tomorrow, and the rest will take a little bit longer, but I can handle it. Ida. Shinsuo. How was the support department? Uraraka asked, now facing the two in the lunchroom. The girl won't stop calling me Brain Boy, even though her friend has told her hundreds of times what my name is. Shinsuo complained as he sat down at the table. Maybe it's just a nickname. Those two have nicknames for each other, it seems. Uraraka tried to reason, still keeping up a happy smile as she talked. Though Ida seemed pretty distracted by the boy though. Shinsuo threw with a smirk to the other boy who blushed slightly. Oh, Ida, someone has a crush on the boy from support, Uraraka teased, getting a head nod from Tsuyu. Definitely sounds like it's ribbit. It's not that. It's just he seems very focused on his work and he just Ida stopped trying to explain after he saw the looks on his friends' faces. Here, Ida will help you get with the support guy, Shinsuo said, patting his back slightly. Yeah. Uraraka cheered. I believe Aizawa-sensei said that his name was Izuku. The four paused for a second thinking on it. Sounds like a given name rather than last, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right, Sue, it does. That maybe he just doesn't like his last name or something. Uraraka tried to reason. Still, it seems rather impolite to call him by his first name. Ida said, chopping his arms. Don't worry, Ida, you'll be able to call him by his first name all you want. Shinsuo smirked as his friend began to blush and stutter. So Zuka, seemed like that Ida guy was kinda looking at you, Hatsum teased. Well, yeah? I mean, he would need to look at me if he's talking to me, unless he doesn't look people in the eye, then it would make sense, but why wouldn't he look people in the eyes? Hatsum chuckled, cutting off his rambling. No, Zuku, I meant I think he likes you. Izuku quirked an eyebrow at that. He SEGD at being a people person? I would hope so. Since I'm building his armor, he would at least need to tolerate me, I guess. Zuki, you are a terrible people person, she sighed again and grabbed onto his shoulders, shaking him. He thinks you're cute. He probably wants to get to know you, blockhead. Izuku only chuckled nervously, still getting used to the contact she often gave. I mean, I didn't see it obviously, but I don't think so, Mimi. I don't exactly look or act the best. Besides, he could do better. Hatsum looked at her friend like he had just stomped on a dog's tail. You know what? No. She got the attention of the other support students and almost laughed when Power Loader looked scared at that. Peasants, we need to somehow explain to Zuku that he is amazing, or so help me. Wait, Izuku, do you have low confidence? Sakura asked, a little shocked. He nodded his head shyly with a slight blush while rubbing the back of his neck. We must help the god of support. He heard Akihiro cheer before they all went to plan leaving him out. Okay, well, I'm gonna go get lunch really quick, Power Loader sensei. Nodded. As Izuku walked out of the room, he immediately ran into someone slightly taller than him. Oh, sorry about that, I wasn't paying attention. He quickly spit out as he took a step back and made sure the person was okay. Izuku paused at the hum and noticed the slight green-black coming from the person's ears. Oh, hard of hearing. He lifted his hands and began to sign. Is this easier than reading my lips? Or trying to hear me? He asked with a small smile. The energy gathered in the person's hands. How'd you know I can't hear? The voice whispered angrily at him. He quirked an eyebrow and signed again, seeing as the other didn't tell him to stop. My quirk lets me see energies. Your hearing aids give off more energy. He explained, trying not to make the other angrier. The other nodded in some understanding before speaking. Tell anyone and your dead meat, got it? The tone scared him slightly, reminding him too much of her, but he could tell by the voice and stance that he was surprised, happy, and a little scared, it would seem, about someone knowing he couldn't hear. Izuku put it to the back of his brain and kept walking to the cafeteria to grab something to eat. Once he made it there, he walked up with lunch rush, already knowing what he was gonna get. When he first saw the hero, he geeked a little, but he calmed down now and was about to walk out when someone stopped him. Hey, Izuku, right? He turned to the sight of a pink light and nodded his head with a small smile, trying to be polite. My name is Uraraka Ochako. I was wondering if you would like to sit with me and my friends for lunch? Oh, well, sure, why not? He followed her as they walked to what he assumed was her table, with her telling him about who she was. Hey guys, this is Izuku. He shyly waved and looked at the lights, already recognizing Ida and Shinsuo. Hi there, Ida and Shinsuo, right? Getting a nod from the two, he turned to Shinsuo. Sorry, Mimi keeps calling you brain boy. I tried telling her to stop, but she just keeps calling you that. Don't worry about it. Shinsuo side-eyed Ida and smirked. Why don't you tell us about yourself, Izuku? HM? Well, I'm in the support department. I have an energy quirk. I have a robot arm. Izuku was trying to think of anything else to say. Really? An energy quirk? How does that work? Tsu asked. Right, my name is Tsuyu Ajui but you can call me Tsu. Oh right, Midoriya Izuku but call me Izuku or whatever honestly. He chuckled a little as he introduced himself. How come you go by Izuku if that's your given name? Uraraka asked a little curious about the boy. Oh I just prefer it, not a fan of the last name thing. He explained simply with a slightly strained smile. Before anything else could happen an alarm went off causing people to jump up and run. What is that? Uraraka yelled over the noise. It's an intruder alarm. Izuku gritted out through clenched teeth as he covered his ears and closed his eyes slightly. Are you okay? Ida asked leaning down. Izuku looked up and nodded his head shakily before leaning back up and taking a few breaths. There should be a room or something where everyone is heading, we need to go there and not get trampled. Izuku was still speaking through gritted teeth but trying to control the situation as much as he could. The four nodded and followed him as they went through the crowds of people. Izuku and Ida ended up shoved up the glass seeing what was happening. It's the media! Ida tried to shout to get everyone's attention. Izuku looked up and saw a few poles hanging off the ceiling. Ida, follow my lead. Izuku waited for the boy to nod before he jumped up and grabbed onto one of the poles hanging on it. He then turned himself upside down and hooked his feet so he could stay. Uraraka hit Ida's hand and make him float. The girl nodded being able to reach him. Ida grab on. Ida reached for Izuku's hands, being able to grab on. Izuku smirked and pushed Ida over to the front wall in front of everyone. Once Ida got the message across, Uraraka released her quirk letting Ida down. Izuku grabbed onto the pole still having his legs hooked before he twisted his body and rolled onto the ground safely. Wow Izuku! That was cool! He turned around back to Uraraka and blushed a little. Thanks, it was pretty simple though I can teach you guys if you want. They quickly said their goodbyes as the alarm was called off and everyone could go back to lunch or class. Izuku found an empty hallway with no classes and almost collapsed to the ground. He held onto his chest feeling the panic begin to overtake him. Lights around him began to flicker in and out meaning he was going into overload. He noticed a light almost running towards him before it all went dark. Hey, it's okay, can you hear me? He nodded his head slowly, still hyperventilating. Okay, that's good. Is it okay if I touch you? He nodded his head again, feeling arms slowly grab onto his shoulders, strong but kind, and trying to steady him. Okay, breath with me in 1, 2, 3 out, 1, 2, 3 good, keep doing that. Soon his breathing was back to somewhat normal, letting his quirk come back and making him groan. Sorry, he slurred slightly trying to sit up a little more before the arms stopped him. It's okay, can you tell me what happened? He still couldn't see well but had leaned into the person talking to him. Too much panic, was all he said, blinking his eyes in hopes it would make the lights clearer. How come you didn't react like this when it happened? He thought for a minute, figuring out that they must have seen him help Ida. I tried to stay calm, needed to help first. His voice was finally coming back and he wasn't stuttering. Okay, let's get you to Recovery Girl and see what she can do, okay? Izuku nodded his head and stood up slowly, catching himself a little. Who's your teacher so I can tell them you'll be missing for a few? Power Loader, support class. We're finally coming back more and more. He looked to the person and saw a light pink with a little blue mixed in. Oh, you're Midoriya Izuku then. I'm Midnight, you can't really see me right now, can you? He shook his head no. I'm sorry for bothering you, Midnight-sensei. Oh, and you can call me Izuku, explained. Well Izuku, it's really no problem, it's my job as a teacher to make sure that all the students are safe. He blushed and looked down at the ground as they made their way to the nurse's office. Once they were there, Recovery Girl had him sit on one of the beds as she looked for his file and talked to Midnight. Do you know what happened, Midnight? She asked, finally to find the file and open it. He said it was due to the panic and tried to stay calm and help people. Recover Girl nodded her head, reading through the file. Okay, well he might want to head home early then. She grabbed the phone and began calling the number listed. Hello. She was a little surprised at the younger-sounding voice but continued. Hello, I'm Recovery Girl. Are you Midoriya Izuku's guardian? There was a pause before the person on the other line answered. Yes, I am. Is he okay? Did something happen? She recognized the worry in the other's voice. Yes, there was just an alarm due to the press and he seemed to have a panic attack. I suggest he go home early to relax so as to not aggravate his head. I see, I can't get him right now but his sister will be able to, her name's Toga, she'll be over soon. The person hung up before she could say anything else. Recovery girl didn't think much of it and she went back to Izuku. So Midoriya, she almost missed the flinch he gave at the name. I'm sending you home to rest. Don't worry, your classmates and teacher will catch you up. They said a Toga was coming. She saw the boy perk up at that. Really? I don't want to bother them though. They're your guardian Izuku, don't worry. Now lay down and get some rest, okay? He nodded his head and laid down. Is the kid going to be okay? She had almost forgotten Midnight was there but turned to her with a nod. Yes, he'll be okay. Most likely exhausted. You can go though if you want. Midnight. She watched as the adult looked back to the bed without an answer. Okay, just don't wake him up. Dabi almost had a heart attack when he got a call from the school. He wasn't expecting to get a call unless it was Aizawa complaining about something, but when they said something was up with Izuku he almost left the house to run there. Luckily Toga had offered to go and get him since she knew Dabi wasn't comfortable with going to highly populated areas. So he was stuck sitting there at the house worrying why Izuku needed to come there, even though he knew why. It wasn't long though till the girl came back with a sleeping Izuku on her back. Is he okay? Dabi asked, still a little worried. The little sunshine's okay. There was an alarm that went off causing panic and it wasn't good for him, so Midnight helped him and he's still worn out. She whispered as to not wake Izuku up. Okay, well set him on the couch and we'll, I don't know, watch a movie or something. Dabi's soft for a child, she teased as she walked past him to the couch. I hate you. When Izuku walked into the classroom the next day, he was almost immediately tackled by the class. Izuku, oh my god dash. What happened dash? Who hurt my baby? He took an awkward step back, putting both of his hands up in front of him. Give him some breathing room. They all took a step back, noticing that he seemed overwhelmed. Thank you. Now Izuku, what happened? Izuku flinched slightly at the loudness but calmed down a little. After the alarm was settled I had a panic attack due to the panic. Midnight Sensei found me and took me to Recovery Girl and I went home. He explained, still a little overwhelmed with all the people around him. Why didn't you tell us? You know what, not the important part. Everyone go back to work and let him change and breathe please. Everyone listened to Hatsum going back to the benches kinda sadly but letting the boy breath finally. Thanks Mimi. He changed his clothes quickly before coming back out and standing next to Hatsum. So what did I miss yesterday when I left? Well, I have some stuff I want to test out when everyone goes to lunch. Oh, Power Loader is having me and you go with the hero course to the USJ later this week. Izuku almost fell over before he caught himself on the table. What, why? Well, since me and you are the best, obviously, we're going to observe them for possible support gear since a lot of them apparently don't think they need any. She shouted the last part like they were going to hear it, but he only nodded along. When lunchtime came around, some of the hero course students stayed in the room to talk for a minute. Did you all hear that 2 support students were coming on the field trip too? Uraraka asked for their attention. Whoa, really? I wonder who? Kirishima said excitedly. Who do you think it is, Baku bro? I don't care, shitty hair, I'll crush them anyways. Wait, let's go to the support room and see if we can find out. Kaminari suggested, pumping his fist into the air. What do you say, Baku bro? If it'll make you Fs leave me alone. As they walked down the hall to the support room, Shinsuo started teasing Ida. Maybe it's the cute support boy Ida likes. Some of the class started saying, oh, as the boy blushed. Oh, are you talking about Izuku? Momo asked, stepping forward a little bit. You mean the kid that did your costume? Mina asked, still a little excited. Before Momo could answer, they heard yelling behind the door they were going to knock on. Mimi, there are people behind the door. Just as they hear that, the door was thrown open, revealing a boy with a metal arm. He jumped in front of them as a bright neon blue shield appeared and covered them from the blast. What the hell? Bakugo yelled, voicing the thoughts of the others. They looked up from the ground, seeing the shield disappear and the boy smile at them. Sorry guys, are you okay? They all looked at him slightly surprised before a girl ran out of the room. Zuko, are you okay? Izuku and Hatsum were working on the project Hatsum wanted to test when he noticed it glowing a dangerous green light. Mimi, we need to get out of the way. Before he could move himself, though, he sensed lights behind the door. Mimi, there are people behind the door. Izuku began to pump energy to one of the openings in his metal arm. He slammed open the door and made the shield. Hopping in front of the group, he blocked them from the explosion. He swayed a little, feeling some pain but not enough to affect him, and looked to the lights. Sorry, are you guys okay? He looked at the lights a little longer and recognized most of the group as one: Iida, Shinsuo, Momo, Uraraka, Tsu, and Baku. Zuku, are you okay? He looked over to Hatsum's light and nodded. I'm just fine, Mimi, though we need to work on the wiring of that last project. Zuku. Izuku looked up from his slight rant to her. You're bleeding. He paused and brought his hand up to where he felt a warmer present on his face. Oh, huh. He brought his hand back down and turned to the hero students. Well, what brings you guys here? I thought it was lunch. Hatsum sighed and guided Izuku back into the room with the others following. It is. Nice to meet you. I'm Ashido Mina, but you can call me Mina. Izuku looked at the excited light and smiled. Nice to meet you, Mina. You can call me Izuku. He sat on top of the table as Hatsum pushed him onto it and walked away. Do you get hurt a lot in here, Izuku? Uraraka asked, looking worriedly at the boy. HM? No, not really, I don't think. You'd have to ask Mimi. He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. No, he doesn't. Hatsum answered, coming back with the first aid kit in hand and starting to work on his small head wound. Shouldn't you go to Recovery Girl for that? Shinsuo asked. No, I don't want to bother her, it's not that bad anyway. Izuku tried to reason as he let Hatsum do her work. But why are you all here? He asked again now that he wasn't injured. Oh right, we wanted to know what support students were coming on the trip. Mina cheered out as the others nodded along with her, except Bakugu, who just looked said. Oh, it's me and Mimi, they told us yesterday but I didn't hear about it till today. He rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. What's Project SH? Shinsuo asked, looking at the fabric sitting on one of the desks. Oh, it's the capture weapon for you actually, but it's not finished yet, needs a little more work but it should be better than the other one. He explained, handing the pile of fabric to the other. So, SH for Shinsuo Hitoshi? He asked, receiving a nod from the two. Yeah, we name them with the initials of the people so that we know what goes to who, and if someone has the same initials we add the class or year. Izuku explained as he began looking through the other projects he had at his desk. Oh, that's pretty cool, Izuku, Mina said, looking at them as well before getting a smirk on her face. What about our class pres Ida here? Got any projects for him? Ida almost immediately blushed while Izuku seemed to brighten up. Thanks for reminding me. I actually finished the helmet for your costume. Now it should be able to send signals, messages, show heat signature, and night vision. Plus, if something were to happen, it can activate a distress signal that is almost impossible to stop from going to the school. Izuku explained, showing some of the buttons now on the side of the helmet, and handed it to him. Wow, that's really impressive, Izuku. Uraraka said, looking at the helmet with the others. Thanks. Though I need to work on some of the parts a little more, it will do for now. He said, looking at his other projects before he noticed Momo again. Momo, I can show you the other parts of your costume now. He pulled the girl's case out of nowhere and opened it. Change into this really quickly. The girl nodded and grabbed the case and went to change. Once she stepped out, Izuku smiled. Okay, there are a few buttons on the side of your neck here. He pointed them out on the collar. They do a few different things. The first one here creates a mask mouthguard thing that has a gas mask and respirator that will let you breathe underwater too. And this one creates a visor type thing that shows heat signatures and night vision. He explained while demonstrating it. Wow, Izuku! This is amazing! EB ushed at the comment. Thank you. He let her change out of it. Hey Zuku, can you give me a hand? He could hear the smirk in Hatsumi-Ai's voice. She didn't actually need a hand. Sure thing. He lifted his other arm and made sure the class of kids were watching as he disconnected his arm and passed it to Mei. Most of them screamed while others just looked shocked. The two started laughing hysterically as the others seemed to calm down and even join in the laughing. Izuku leaped from one edge of the building to the next one. He needed to get to Dabi and Toga now. Izuku was dealing with a group of lower levels that had been talking about a possible attack on Yue. Once there was only one left awake, he picked them up with one arm and held them against a wall. Attack on Yue, now. The man in his grip began shaking. Izuku glared and pulled his other arm back, aiming for a punch. Okay at a group, the League of Villains they call themselves, they want to attack a class that All Might's teaching soon, their dash. The man was cut off as he slowly turned to ash in Izuku's hold. He gasped and quickly let go of the ash in his hand. He looked to where the man was and saw dark energy with a hand sticking through it. A person stepped out as Izuku jumped back. Can't have underlings snitching, can we? Izuku stared at the man. He had a dark energy around him, putting Izuku on edge. You, though, are also in the way. Two other people stepped out and Izuku watched them like a hawk. One lunged forward with a knife and began fighting Izuku. He kept his range open in case the other one would join in, but he didn't. Instead, he pulled out a gun and began shooting at the two. Izuku kept pressure on the largest wound as he ran. He coughed and saw blood on his other hand. He wasn't far from them, though. One last jumped and he crashed through an open window and landed on the floor. Izuku! He heard them both shout as he slowly tried to stand up. Come on, talk to me, kid. Dabi said, looking Izuku over. It looked like he had been shot and then the area around it had been disintegrated. There were smaller wounds like cuts and scrapes and bruises. Izuku leaned against Dabi and used his quirk to take some of the energy from the warmth he radiated. Keeping his hand on the wound, he sent the energy there and felt it slowly fix itself. Izuku gasped in breath and took a few seconds before looking to Dabi with wide eyes. Call Aizawa now. When Aizawa finally made it to the house, he was a little shocked to see Izuku passing around the room with cuts and bruises while muttering. Dabi and Himiko looked like they wanted to stop him, but it didn't seem to be working. What's going on? Aizawa asked in a serious tone. That seemed to snap Izuku out of it as he turned to Aizawa. League of Villains plans on attacking Yue. Aizawa was going to speak, but Izuku continued, I was asking around and then this guy's just turned to dust in front of me. Next thing I know, this guy with a bunch of hands pops out with two other guys. They plan on attacking when All Might's there, which means they likely have some way to beat him, which also means if they do then they're confident enough in it to spread the word and dash. Aizawa stared in shock as he heard what the child described what he heard and what happened. Izuku, stop. The boy slammed a hand over his mouth. A man turned to dust in front of you? The boy glared at the hero. Yes. At first I thought I had accidentally taken all of his energy, but then this guy showed up and I had to dodge these two guys, got cut a few times, shot once, and then the guy with the hands touched the wound and it was like parts of my skin slowly slipped away. If he can do that and he's their leader, then they might have a way to get rid of All Might and dash. Izuku kept talking and repeating things he already said. Izuku. Dabi said in a calmer voice while running his hand through his hair. Right, sorry. He calmed down and took a breath. The League of Villains have a way to take down All Might. They plan on attacking Class 1 or 2. If they want to do that, then the two targets would need to be away from the school to even think about it, so. Izuku's eyes widened. They plan on attacking the USJ. After the trip to Dabi's and seeing Izuku freak out, Aizawa rushed to tell Netsu. I'm sorry, Aizawa, but I can't change the schedule just because of the talk. That's all Aizawa received, and he hoped Izuku was wrong. That morning when Izuku was getting dressed, he made sure to have his other armor on him, his mouth mask, and his leg armor too. He kept the leg armor as its smaller form and made it look like his shoes so no one would think anything of it. The mask was worn like an earpiece. The other arm was already a part of his metal arm. All he had to do was say, Void, and his armor would activate. When he made it to the school, though he was anxious, he could feel something was going to go wrong. Him and Mei were already at the USJ, they just had to wait for Class 1A to get there. He opened his range higher and looked around the building. He didn't see anything yet, but that bothered him more than if he did see something. You okay? He jumped and turned to Hatsumi, who had whispered to him. No, I feel like something's gonna go wrong. I know something's gonna go wrong. Hatsumi looked him in the eyes for a moment. Yes, same here. I brought these for emergency. She pulled something out of her belt and Izuku wanted to kiss her. She was holding the microbombs and flash bombs. They were both still experimental, and if she set them off they could cause damage. Mimi, I love you, she smirked. I know. Izawa and the class then walked in, and Izuku quirked an eyebrow at not seeing All Might. He ignored it though as Izawa introduced them. This is Hatsumi and Izuku. They are the support students here to help you with support items you might need. The two waved at the class but otherwise didn't say anything. The explanation seemed to drown on as Izuku zoned out. He still had his range open just in case. He jumped a little though when it seemed like the energy of the building stopped. Izuku groaned internally and walked over to Izawa. Try to send a message to the school. Izawa stared at him for a moment but did as asked. When the message didn't go through though, Izuku wanted to die then and there. What happened to it? They were both whispering at this point. Izuku was going to answer when he felt a dark energy in the middle of the building. They cut communication. Look behind us. Izuku didn't know if it was showing yet, but by the reaction he gave and the small gasp. Villains. 13 protect the students. He saw Izawa leap down to the middle. Is this part of it? He heard the students talking as 13 led them away. Hatsumi was grabbing onto his arm in panic and he could see her hand resting on the bombs. This isn't part of it. Everyone run. 13 called. Izuku was worried but didn't get the chance to panic as the energy from before was close to the front. Void, he whispered, feeling the armor wrap around him. He ran close to the front just as the form appeared and jumped up before swinging his leg and knocking the form down to the ground. You need to go now. Izuku yelled even though it was distorted due to the class seemed shocked and the form would be down for a minute since he stole energy when he hit. Ida. Kaminari. Both of them jumped. Try sending a signal to the school, warn them and tell them what's happening. Kaminari wasn't able to get through, but since Izuku had built Ida's helmet it just barely worked. This is Ida Tenya of Hero Class 1A. The USJ is under attack by villains. I repeat, USJ is under attack. Izuku drowned them out for a moment and tried to see how many were there at the USJ. There were over 200. There's over 200 villains in here. We need dash. Izuku was cut off as he had to dodge the form from before and slid in front of the class. We can't have that now, can we? You've ruined it already. Izuku glared at the form and recognized the energy. Oh, it's you from the other night. It's a shame we couldn't stop you then. We'll have to kill you now though. Izuku didn't move though even though the form raced towards him. He felt Bakugo and someone else race forward and try to attack the form. Good luck getting to him when we're here, ya extra. Bakugo warned, setting off explosions. Izuku stood back up and got into a defensive position. I see some of you are stupid. He looked around the group. I also see All Might isn't here. No matter, we'll just have to kill a few kids to get his attention. Izuku glared as he sent more energy to his body from the ground. It was like green lightning was surrounding him as he ran forward. He aimed a punch where the villain was before he left again. Izuku could tell though he had an actual body under the metal. 13 get them out. If the guy comes back, aim for the metal part. He has an actual body under the thing. He didn't know how to describe it since he couldn't actually see it. Zuku, what about you? Hatsumi asked worriedly. He smiled and hugged her. Don't worry. He let her go and began running. I do this every night. When Izuku jumped down, he immediately began helping get villains off of Izawa's back. Each time he hit someone, he took some of their energy and stored it up, making his armor brighter. What the hell are you doing? You can't be down here. Izuku ignored him as he took down a few more villains. He pushed some of the energy to his legs before pushing off and landing on 2 villains and landing in front of Izawa. You're not Void. Izuku nodded before both of them went back to fighting the group of villains. Once they both got breathing room, Izuku saw the guy from before and wanted to run. He couldn't get the guy's ashes out of his brain. That guy over there is the one I ran into the other night, Izuku explained, now next to Izawa. Don't let him touch you with all 5 fingers, he warned before going back to fighting the villains. Izuku tried to keep on his toes as he fought the villains since the guy was still nearby and he seemed to be saying something. He tried to listen in but he couldn't hear it well. All the energy he was taking was a little overwhelming since all he was doing was storing it inside himself. He looked to where Izawa was fighting when he noticed the guy from before racing forward at him. Izuku's eyes widened as he pushed energy through his body and flew in front of Aizawa, making the guy touch Izuku's chest. "Oh, you're quick, aren't you?" Izuku glared and created a blade on his arm before swinging at the man and forcing him back. Izuku felt the blood drip before placing a hand over the injury and forcing energy there, making it heal. "And you have a few tricks up your sleeve, huh?" He glared again before going back to fighting the other villains. "I am afraid one of the students was able to reach the school." Izuku smirked, knowing it was Ida. "What? If you weren't our way out, I would kill you." He began scratching his neck crazily. "Well, since we won't have long." "Nomu!" A portal opened, revealing a large creature, though all Izuku could see was multiple energies forced together. He gasped and took a step back. It was terrifying for him to look at. It was people forced together. They all wanted out, and Izuku felt like he could hear them screaming for help. "Deal with them." Izuku couldn't move until he saw it going for Aizawa. He pushed the teacher out of the way and was able to dodge the creature altogether. "Izuku," he looked down to the teacher, panting a little, "you need to calm down." He didn't even notice he was hyperventilating at this point. He didn't get to breathe though as it tried to attack them again. Once they were far enough away, Izuku finally calmed down and turned to Aizawa. "It has multiple quirks likely, we need to be careful." Aizawa nodded as the two got ready to fight, at least until Izuku noticed some of the students in the water with the guy going after them. He ran over, creating a whip, and wrapped it around the man's wrist and yanked it back. "Wow, you move fast, not fast enough though." Izuku was confused until he heard the sound of Aizawa being slammed to the ground. He was distracted long enough for the guy to attack him and placed his hand on Izuku's chest again. He kicked him away again and healed the spot. He needed to get Aizawa and the students out and away from the people. "I am here." Izuku almost cried at the arrival since it distracted both Shigaraki and the Nomu from them. When the Nomu got up to attack All Might though, Izuku ran over and looked at Aizawa's injuries and how bad they were. "Can you hear me?" he asked quietly. He was still panicking and constantly feeling the energy from the Nomu scream wasn't helping. "Why, it's bad though." Izuku nodded his head before placing both hands onto the teacher and taking a few breaths. He slowly pulled energy from the ground and the energy he had stored to try and help the hero. Green lightning crackled around them as Aizawa slowly healed. It wasn't fully healed, but he would be able to stand and walk on his own and not pass out. "Tsu, Mineta, Shinso, take Aizawa and get him up the stairs." Tsu and Mineta began helping, but Shinso hesitated. "What about you?" "I'm fine, All Might needs help so I'm staying." He quickly turned around and noticed Shigaraki looking for an opening. He ran at the man and punched him, making him fly back and pass out for a moment. "Izuku!" He turned and saw Bakugo, Kirishima, and Todoroki standing there. He ran over to them. "What are you three doing here? It's not safe." "If it's not safe, then why the F are you here?" Bakugo asked. Izuku tried to think of how to word the answer. "I've encountered some of these people before and I know how to take them down," he explained. "So do we." Todoroki spoke before freezing the Nomu to the ground and getting All Might time to breathe. Izuku could see the energy slowly leaving All Might. He wouldn't be able to fight much longer. "Bakugo," the blonde turned to him, "hit me with an explosion." All three looked to him like he was crazy. "Are you FNG crazy? I could kill you." Izuku sighed. He could pull energy from the ground, but it wouldn't work as fast and would take longer. "No, you won't. Just hit me." "No. I'm not effing hitting you." "Damn it, Bakugo. Hit me dash." Izuku was cut off as he felt his body absorb the energy from the explosion. He opened his eyes with a smirk as he felt better. "Thanks." He yelled before running back into the fight and starting to attack Shigaraki while using his whip to pull one of the Nomu's punches away. "The heroes are here." Izuku looked up from where he had Shigaraki to see all the heroes standing there. Shigaraki was shot once before teleporting away with some of the other villains. He sighed in relief at finally being able to stop fighting and let the energy flow naturally. He almost fell but felt someone catch him. "I got you, honey, are you hurt?" He recognized Midnight right away. "No, just tired." He felt himself slowly falling asleep. Since he was falling asleep, the armor went back to normal, shocking Midnight for a second. "Okay, stay awake for a second, we need to make sure you're okay. He nodded his head and slowly stood up with the help of Midnight. Izuku made it up the stairs with the help of Midnight and stopped before looking around. He could tell from the light alone that everyone was there and still alive. He looked back down to the courtyard and saw All Might's light, but it looked wrong. Zuku! Oh my god! Are you okay? Mei yelled as she ran towards the boy. I'm fine, Mimi, just a little beaten up is all. Are you okay? I didn't see you during the fight. Mei had to resist the urge to point out that he can't really see anything. I'm fine, bombs came in handy though. He smiled at the joke. Still, when he touched her arm, he moved energy to her just in case she was lying. Izuku! He turned to see Kirishima, Bakugo, and Todoroki standing there. That was crazy. How'd you do that? Izuku was going to answer when he saw the principal. I'll explain it later, I need to talk to someone. He didn't move much and felt his mask cover his face as he approached the principal. I warned you. Everyone froze. The voice sounded so different than the cheery, skittish one from before. Midoriya, what do you mean? Izuku glared. I told Eraserhead the information, and I told him when and where they were going to attack, and you ignored the information like it was gossip. His quirk activated out of anger, making his arm and mask light up with small traces of lightning. I see, well, we couldn't trust simple talk. He wanted to break the ground around him, though it cracked from the pressure of more energy. It wasn't just a guy was murdered over that information and they tried to kill me. So don't tell me it was talk. More energy crackled around him. He felt two people touch his arms. He turned slightly, seeing Midnight and Hatsumi. It's okay, Izuku, why don't we check on the others? Midnight offered. Izuku calmed down a little more. He needed to make sure everyone was okay first. Yeah. Yell at him later, Zuku. Hatsumi joked, pulling him a little. He calmed down, making his mask disappear along with the lighting. Right, sorry. He followed them over to the others and healed any small injuries while Recovery Girl worked on the larger wounds. Once everyone was okay, the police were supposed to arrive soon. When Izuku heard that, he jumped a little and looked around for a second. What's wrong, Izuku? Uraraka asked, noticing the sudden panic. Nothing, just not the biggest fan of cops. He got a few weird looks but didn't say anything else. With his run as a vigilante, he had never been chased by the police. Sure, he had run into them a few times and even helped them a lot with catching people, but they had never tried to catch him. That wasn't why he didn't like cops though. He didn't like them because of what happened with his parents. No one ever saved his dad, and no one had ever tried to save him from his mother. When the cops did arrive, they questioned the students, including Izuku. Hello, I'm Detective No Mesa. Can you tell me your name, Quirk, and what happened? Izuku nodded his head, but his flesh hand was still shaky. Yet at my name's Midoriya Izuku and .my Quirk is C called Energy. He told No Mesa the gist of what happened, and as he talked the detective seemed a little shocked. That's what happened. I see, thank you for telling us. Are you injured? Izuku shook his head. That's a lie. Izuku jumped a little. Oh, it's just a cut. I got it during the fight. He moved his arms, showing a large cut on his side. He placed his hand over it and tried to use his quirk, but it didn't seem to be working well. I think it was hit with a Chu quirk present. All of a sudden his world went dark. He couldn't see any lights or anything. He fell, a little panicked. Yeah. It was Duck. Can you get Mimi, please? He asked, already feeling himself panic more. He didn't know if the detective left, but from the sound of it he did. He felt someone touch his arm. He jumped and turned to where he thought the body was. The hell's your problem? He recognized it as Bakugo and calmed down slightly. Oh, hi Bakugo. I can't see. It was silent for a moment before he felt someone touch his face, making him jump again. Calm the F down, it's just me. He calmed down more as the hand was pulled away. If I hit you with an explosion, will that fix it? Izuku chuckled and shook his head. And now, I was cut with a quirk present. He moved his arm trying to show the cut. Sheet, so you can't see anything? Why the f not? Izuku was still just staring into empty space since he couldn't see anything. I went blind due to an accident. My quirk spots energy, so since I can't use my .my quirk I'm blind. The blonde was silent again. Is that why you got a FING scar? Izuku subconsciously put his hand over the lightning-like scar. And noted that was something else. Bakugo hummed as Izuku heard people running over. Zuku, are you okay? Can you still not see? Izuku nodded his head, though Mei got the hint when he didn't look at her. Can you show me the wound, dearie? He heard Recovery Girl ask. He moved his arm showing the cut. She let out a small hiss. That must hurt here. She used her quirk on his, making him jump again, but settled down when he felt tired. From all the quirk usage, you'll probably fall asleep soon. That was the last thing Izuku heard before he passed out. When he wakes up, will his quirk be back? Mei asked worriedly. Don't worry, it will. He just needs to rest for now. Someone will have to carry him though. As if on cue, Bakugo picked up the other carefully in a bridal carry. Wow. Thanks, Explosion Boy. Mei yelled in excitement. My name's Bakugo, you effing extra. He yelled back, kicking the girl, though she just shrugged it off. To many names, I only remember Zuku's, she declared as they all made it back to the bus to ride back to the school. Bakugo glared at her. Izuku slowly blinked and realized he could see the energy again. He sat up quickly and looked around. Calm down, you're in the school. He jumped slightly before looking at the bed near him. He realized it was Aizawa and calmed down. Are you okay? Were they able to fix everything else? Izuku asked, still in a fighting panic mode. I'm fine. You need to calm down though, you're going to exert yourself. Aizawa scolded. Izuku nodded his head and took a few breaths before focusing. From what he could tell, he had extra energy still on him, though it was likely taken from people around him when he passed out. He stood up slowly. He didn't have any other injuries, so he was fine. Are you gonna turn me in to ditch the cops? Izuku asked nervously. After all, Aizawa now knew he was a vigilante. No, you haven't done anything wrong and you've tried to help us. I don't see a reason to tell them. They aren't exactly after you. He chuckled a little since Aizawa wasn't wrong. He looked at his prosthetic and made sure everything on it was working correctly and wasn't damaged. Everything seemed in order when someone burst in the room. Izuku, you're awake. Hatsumi ran and tackled him into a hug. Izuku caught her and laughed a little. Sorry, Mimi, didn't mean to worry you. She stood back and smacked him on the head. Idiot. Don't go doing that again. I don't care if you fight people every night, don't go passing out on me. He chuckled again and nodded his head. I'll try better next time, promise. She stared at him before nodding her head. Good, now you owe me an explanation. What the F was that? He jumped a little before making them both sit on the bed. Well, that I'm a kind of a vigilante. I mean, I fight people and stuff and help get information for Dabai. Oh yeah. She stared at him again, looking for a trace of a lie. She sighed and pulled him into another hug. As your best friend, you're going to give me 5 heart attacks. He quirked an eyebrow in confusion until she pulled out her phone. Here's my number and address. If you ever need help with anything, and I mean anything, then come to me, okay? You're my best friend and I would like you to not die. Izuku smiled and hugged her back. Of course, Mimi. Now tell me what you did with the bombs and how well they worked. After the USJ, the people involved were given a break to recuperate, though that didn't mean Izuku gave himself a break. He ended up running around the city trying to figure out the League's next move. If he could warn them, it would help a lot. He just didn't expect to run into some of the hero class. The group was walking in a bad part of town. Mina had somehow convinced them that it was a shortcut. They are never trusting her again. Damn it, Raccoon Eyes. Why did we listen to you? Bakugo yelled with a sigh. Mina just glared and kicked him in the leg. Come on, Baku bro, we all get a little lost from time to time. Kirishima tried to defend. I agree with Kirishima. It was a small mistake. Ida shouted, waving his hands. We should probably try not to draw attention to us. Shinso commented as they passed a man that looked at them before putting his head down. It can't be that bad, right? Uraraka and Kaminari said at the same time. They shouldn't have said that though, as a large group of people surrounded them. You just had to say something, didn't you? Siro tried to joke, though he was panicking. Well, what do we have here? Never seen any of you around before. One of them spoke. He had a knife in his right hand. We are students of UA. Would you be so kind to move? Ida asked, making the others face palm. Of course he would. Oh, UA students? Why didn't you say so? I'm sure the boss would love to meet you. The man lunged forward, though he was stopped when a blue whip wrapped around his waist and dragged him away from the group before slamming him into a wall. Everyone froze and turned to see Void standing there with his energy knife already in hand. The knife disappeared, though, as it changed into a chain whip with a spike ball at the end. He casually picked it up and began spinning the weapon to his side. Some of the men ran while others stayed and got into a fighting stance. He walked forward casual until he was standing right in front of them. He stopped spinning the weapon and stood still. It was like a gunshot went off as they all lunged at each other, though the fight was over quickly with Void as the winner. He tied the group up and to a pole before turning to the class and pulling his mask down and his visor to sit on his hat. Are you guys okay? What are you doing out here? He asked. That seemed to snap them out of their shock. What the F was that? Though Bakugu was the first to speak. Izuku quirked an eyebrow. I took down a small gang? He answered, though he was distracted by the leader waking up. Give me a second. He walked over and untied the guy and helping him up before slamming him against a wall. Why are you targeting UA students? The class jumped a little. Wouldn't you like to know? Why should I tell Robo-Kappa? Izuku glared and dropped the guy. Walking over, he picked up a stray pipe and bent it in half, showing the guy. Because if you don't, this'll be your spine. He spoke through the cold robotic voice. Fine. The League wants us too. They didn't tell us why. Just to do it. Izuku glared again but didn't see a lie. He nodded his head before touching the other man's shoulder and stealing a small amount of energy to make him pass out. He tied him back up before turning back to the class. But why are you guys here? This place isn't safe. I can show you back to the more populated areas. You're not gonna tell us what that was? Uraraka shouted, waving her hands between Izuku and the downed men. I did? I saw them cornering you guys, so I jumped in. They were targeting you. He shifted in his spot a little. Why were they so confused? They mean, why the F do they know you and why the hell are you here? Bakugu yelled. Izuku jumped a little but calmed down pretty quickly. I'm a vigilante? I thought you all knew that after the USJ, this is kinda where I patrol, he explained. The class was still too shocked to speak. Here. I'll show you an actual shortcut. Everyone was back in class and working on projects again. Izuku was trying to see if there was a more direct way for him to move energy to different places rather than having to put his hands on it. So, what do you guys think of the sports festival? One of the students asked, trying to get conversation to flow. I'm excited. I get to show off my babies. Hatsumi declared. Izuku quirked an eyebrow. Sports festival? He asked, looking away from his project. Everyone else is trying to compete, but for us it lets us show off our projects. Or compete if you want. One of the others explained. Yeah, but if we want to use any of our equipment, then we have to fill out a form. Izuku looked at his arm. Would I have to fill out a form for my arm? The class all looked to each other. No one really knew. No. I'll ask Power Loader Sensei. He walked over to his teacher. Power Loader Sensei? For the sports festival, do I have to fill out a form to use my arm? The teacher seemed taken off guard by the question. He pulled out the rule book and looked at it. I'm not sure. He pulled out a piece of paper and began writing on it. Go ask Aizawa, and if he doesn't know, Nedza should. Thank you, sir. He walked out to one of the cities built where Class 1A was training for the sports festival. He walked up to Aizawa, who was watching, and tapped on his shoulder. What do you need, problem child? Izuku was caught a little off guard by the nickname but went with it. I was wondering if I had to fill out a form to use my arm? Since it's technically a support item, but it's also my arm. Aizawa stared at him for a second. Ask Nedzu. Izuku nodded and walked off to the principal's office. Come in. Izuku walked in, seeing Nedzu sitting with another man, though he recognized All Might thanks to his light. What do we owe the pleasure, Midoriya? Well, I was wondering if I needed to fill out a form for my arm? Since it's technically a support item, but it's also my arm. Both of the adults seemed stunted by the question. That is a good question. It was silent for a moment. Do you think you could fight without it? Izuku looked at his arm and shrugged. Great. Let's test this. Izuku and Nezu walked back to where Wana was and approached Aizawa. Aizawa, the man we were looking for. The teacher turned to the two looking exhausted. We need to borrow a student. Why? We need to see if Midoriya here can fight without his arm. That got most of the students' attention. What? Midoriya, will you please take off your arm? Nezu asked. Izuku nodded and cut the energy from the arm before twisting and taking it off and handing it to Nezu. Fantastic. Now, he turned to the students, which one of you would like to fight Midoriya? The class was silent until Bakugo stood up. I'll fight the effing nerd. What? Bakugo, are you sure? You might hurt him. Dude, not cool. Izuku glared a little at hearing them, so they thought he was weak. But shut the fuck up. Bakugo stalked forward and stood in front of Izuku. Let's get this over with. Izuku smiled and nodded. Fine, go to the middle. The two stood across from each other in their own version of a fighting stance. Izuku's was a little different though since he didn't have his arm. And go. The two sprinted at each other before meeting in the middle. Bakugo threw the first punch but Izuku dodged under it before grabbing on and flipping Bakugo over his back. He slammed him into the ground, knocking the air out of him. Bakugo retaliated with a large explosion. It forced Izuku back but also gave him more energy. Oh. Bakugo's explosion looked weaker. Kaminari pointed out. Oh. Midoriya's quirk. He did something similar at the Uji. Kirishima explained. Bakugo stood up and started sprinting to Izuku. If he could get Izuku down then he would win. Izuku watched him and only started to move when he needed to dodge. He never realized how weird energy flowed for him without his arm. Bakugo let off a few more explosions at Izuku, who took the energy so he didn't get hurt by them, though he had a few scrapes, but with all the extra energy they healed themselves. The fight turned into Izuku dodging and absorbing energy and Bakugo firing off explosions while trying to punch. It got to the point that small waves of green lightning were flowing off of Izuku, so he had too much energy stored up. When the hell are you gonna fight back? Bakugo let off another explosion but Izuku couldn't take the energy this time. He sent him back, making him slid before he stopped and smiled. Right? Sorry, he let more energy flow, making the lightning get stronger. Wasn't used to the energy flow yet, but this makes it easier. He punched his arm down, making the ground fall apart and create a cloud of dust. No one can see anything. What's going on? Izuku can see actually. The entire class jumped now, seeing Hatsumi standing there. When did you get here? She ignored the question and watched the cloud for signs of movement. Since he's considered blind, he normally can't see, but thanks to his quirk, he can see as long as his quirk is still activated. Izuku ran silently until he was right behind Bakugo and powered up. He slammed his fist down to the ground again and spun, kicking Bakugo down and making him slide. Izuku stood back up and ran again, but this time he didn't hide the lightning and charged. Bakugo stood up and dodged, though it didn't do him good since Izuku just grabbed his arm and pinned him to the ground. Once the dust cleared, the class gasped. You're really good. I didn't hurt you, did I? Izuku asked, forcing some energy into Bakugo just in case. I'm effing fine. Can you get off me now, sheet nerd? Izuku stood up and smiled. Right, sorry, he turned back to the others. Can I use my arm? Or, I believe you should be able to use your arm, no problem. I don't know guys, I'm nervous. Dabi sighed and walked over, patting Izuku on the head. Don't worry about it, okay? You have an amazing quirk, you're smart, and you have more experience than anyone in your grade. Toga nodded along and started cheering. Now what are you gonna do? Izuku laughed a little. Try not to die? The two stared at him for a moment. Close enough. Hatsum was jumping around while the others were talking calmly. Zuku. Zigyu. Izuku just smiled and just watched her. Are you as excited as I am? He laughed a little. I don't think anyone is as excited as you are. Hatsum cheered more as she bounced while Izuku simply watched her. So you two are participating in the festival? One of their classmates asked. Of course I am. It'll be a perfect time for me to show off my babies. Izuku looked at the other confused. I thought we all were? Some of the others shook their heads. Nope. It's optional, I would rather not fight the hero students. Same, I'll keep my body parts all attached to me. Oh shit, sorry Izuku. It's fine, but I thought it was mandatory, that's why I asked if I had to fill anything out for my arm. It is since you're my best friend and I'm forcing you to do it. Izuku looked a little nervous now, but he just nodded and let her keep cheering. Okay. Everyone get up to the door. And now the final courses. Izuku wasn't that irritated about not getting an introduction, he was just a little overwhelmed with the amount of energy surrounding him. It was a little difficult to distinguish people in the stand, but it didn't matter. Oh, does he have a metal arm? Maybe it's a support item like that girl. I don't think so. He ignored it and followed Hatsum since it was a little hard to see people clearly with the classes all grouping up. Welcome everyone to the first year sports festival. The crowd cheered, making Izuku jump a little. He kept a hand on Hatsum since she was the only thing he could see clearly. Before we get into the activities, can I have the person who ranked highest in the tests? Bakugo Katsuki. They cheered again as the blonde walked up angrily. I just want to say, I'm gonna win. The classes began yelling at him. Izuku felt himself tense more and stood closer to Hatsum. She turned to him and covered his ears until the yelling stopped. Well, after that, let's get on to the first round. Which is obstacle course. Everyone was gathered in the tunnel waiting for it to start, and Izuku already felt nervous. It was harder to see in front of him with how cramped it was. It's the first obstacle. He realized before the timer went off. He put energy into his entire body, letting the lightning flick around him. Start. Izuku jumped and used other people to get out of the tunnel. When he made it to the end, he saw Todoroki, Momo, Kirishima, Bakugo, and a few others. He ran and stopped for a minute when he saw the robots. I used up some energy doing that, this can help. He ran up to some of the bots and placed his hand on them, stealing the energy pretty easily. Once he was sure he had enough, he ran past them or jumped over them. He finally made it to where the Gorg with wires was, already seeing Mei show off with her inventions. He smiled at his friend before simply running across the wires. If he slipped, he could use his quirk and swing back up. At the last stage, he saw that Bakugo and Todoroki were ahead of everyone and in their own fight. He looked down and saw all the locked-away energy before smirking. Placing his metal hand on the ground, he began to take away the power from the nearby mines. He stored up enough that he was sparking and his arm was brighter than before. Standing back up, he opened his eyes and saw Todoroki and Bakugo getting closer to the end tunnel. Can't have that. He aimed a punch at the ground, using enough energy to send him flying into the air. And what's this? It seems there was a large explosion. Izuku smirked as he flew over to them. Creating a large platform, he slammed it onto the ground next to Bakugo and Todoroki. It's someone else gaining the lead. Sorry about this, boys. They both glared at him as the mines exploded. He stole some more of the energy and used it to create a force strong enough to send him flying again. And who's that at the end of the tunnel? Izuku smiled as he ran through and made it to the exit. It's a support course, students. He heard the crowd gasp. Midoriya Izuku wins. Izuku was bouncing up and down. He had won the first part of the festival. When the others arrived, he stopped and smiled at them. Sorry about the explosion. Are either of you hurt? Todoroki only glared and walked away while Bakugo scoffed. F off, you're not sorry. Izuku laughed a little. Guess not, but you did amazing. Bakugo smirked. Course I did. I'm the fucking best. Izuku looked over as more people made it and saw Hatsumi. Mimi, did you see me? That was awesome. Hatsumi was practically vibrating with excitement. That was fantastic. Did you see my babies though? They worked so well. The two dissolved into a conversation about the items and how to improve them later. Hey, Izuku turned to see Shinso. You did good, that was pretty cool. Izuku blushed a little. Thanks. I saw you near the beginning, using people to carry you was a good idea. Shinso blushed a little. Yeah, thanks. Izuku smiled and nodded before Hatsumi dragged them into a different conversation. Everyone who had made it stood in front of a screen as Midnight explained everything once again before the screen showed the next round. Cavalry battle. She began explaining how it would work and the points everyone would have, and first place has the 10 mil. And just like that, he could almost feel everyone staring at him. He tried not to show it since he really couldn't see it, only feel it. When everyone split up, he was nervous about who would be on his team until Hatsumi tackled him. "Izuku, team with me. We'll win no matter what," she declared, shaking him. He laughed a little and nodded his head before seeing someone else approach. "Izuku, I want to team up." Uraraka ran up to them with confidence. He was a little shocked but not against it. "Of course. Do either of you have someone else in mind?" Uraraka seemed to think before gasping. "What about Ida?" Izuku looked over to where the other was with a blank face. Ever since they found out Izuku was blind and a vigilante, he had been weird and distant, almost judging. "I don't think so, he's after me too." He saw Todoroki's light and felt the same pain as before, like someone needed to help him. Half of his light was so dark to Izuku, trapped by something. "But I have an idea of who to choose." "Thank you for choosing me, Izuku. I am honored, even though we have only talked briefly," Tokoyami said as they got ready. "Don't worry about it." An idea popped into his head, making him smile. "How about after this we go eat? I'm sure Mimi wants to ask a million questions, so do I honestly." He rubbed the back of his neck with a small laugh. "That sounds awesome. I'd love to. I would not be opposed." He smiled and looked to Hatsumi, who was bouncing excitedly. "I am going to make you all so many babies." Izuku laughed at the two's reaction before explaining what she meant. "Start." As soon as midnight called it, Izuku used the support tools and lifted them into the air, causing the teams below them to crash into each other, and some of them even fell off. They stayed up there for a few minutes before Uraraka spoke. "Izuku, I'm running out, I need a break." Izuku looked at her before placing his hand on her shoulder and forcing energy into her, giving her a slight boost. "Whoa. What did you do?" she asked, shocked that she felt fine. "My quirk allows me to take, use, and give energy from people, things, quirks, stuff like that. Before this I still had built up energy from the obstacle course, so I used some on you to give us more time. I assume your class knows about your limits, so if we stretch those limits it makes us more unpredictable," he explained quickly, with the two hero students looking at him in shock. "I see why you have been referred to as a god among your people," Tokoyami stated. Izuku blushed. "You heard about that?" He was embarrassed. He wasn't used to so many people being nice and liking him, much less thinking he was a god. "Oh, we all have. After today they questioned us like crazy." Uraraka laughed at the memory of the other students being so protective of him. He blushed and covered his face as Hatsumi cackled. Okay, let's go down, we can't use up all the energy yet." Uraraka nodded as she let her quirk go, the boots and jetpack holding them as they descended to the ground. It seemed like a few groups noticed they had landed and were heading towards them. Izuku created a whip, wrapping it around one of the teams before throwing them into the others, causing many to fall to the ground and lose. When they passed, Izuku grabbed their headbands before stealing some of their energy. "Why do we need more headbands?" Uraraka asked when they stopped to catch their breath. "Just in case. I don't plan on losing mine, but I won't guarantee anything." The others nodded at him as they heard yelling. They all looked over as Momo created a sheet and draped it over Todoroki's team. Izuku's eyes widened when he realized what was going to happen. "Can we get in the air?" he asked, slightly panicked. "No. Mineta used his quirk. We're stuck," Uraraka explained, looking at the now stuck boot. "Break it off, it'll slow us down." He saw Kaminari charging up and closed his eyes. "Get ready." "What do you dash?" Tokoyami was cut off as Kaminari released his quirk, shocking. All the groups close by. When the current got to them, Izuku focused on the others holding him. He searched for when the lightning hit them and dragged it to himself. He twitched slightly but kept pulling the energy until it stopped. "That felt so weird," Uraraka said, shivering a little. He didn't blame them. He had been told how weird it felt for him to search through someone for a different energy source. "Sorry, no one got shocked, right?" The three sent him a thumbs up. "Good, 'cause they're about to attack." He felt the built-up energy burst around him in his own green lightning. "When they come at us, give me a boost, then go around them." Aye, Captain. We trust you. They will not defeat us yet." He smiled and felt his arm and eyes grow brighter with the energy. He could hear the engines on Ida power up before they shot towards them. As soon as they got to close, Izuku pushed off his group and flipped over them. He saw the heat coming from Todoroki's left side and his eyes widened. That had been the light trapped. He twisted and used Todoroki's shoulder as a springboard before landing back with his group. He looked back at the light and saw it was trapped again. Everyone be careful. We don't know when Izuku was cut off as Bakugo vaulted himself over the wall of ice that had appeared and was heading right towards them. Izuku created a shield on his arm, ready to fend the teams off. Time's up. Izuku sighed in relief as he jumped off of the others. He could still feel the extra energy flowing through him, making him twitch a little before turning to the others. We did great, guys. Thank you so much for your help. He hugged the three before turning to Midnight to announce who won. In fourth we have Team Shinso. In third we have Team Bakugo. Second we have Team Todoroki. And finally, first is Team Midoriya. Izuku flinched a little at the name but brushed it off. First place. Uraraka cheered as her and Hatsum jumped up and down with Tokoyami nodding, though Dark Shadow seemed more excited about it. You! He turned and saw Todoroki walking towards him. I need to talk to you in private. Izuku stared at him for a moment before nodding. Of course, Todoroki. And you can call me Izuku. Todoroki didn't seem to care as they walked down an empty corridor, though it wasn't that empty as Izuku could see Bakugo hiding around the corner. You're a support corps student. Izuku looked at him a little confused. Yes. I didn't see you as a threat since you weren't in the hero course, even though you fought Bakugo and won. I figured you would simply not be interested in winning. I'm not. Todoroki looked up confused as Izuku continued. I'm only in this because I thought we had to, but I also don't want to lose or throw a match. He shrugged his shoulders a little. It was true. Had he known it was optional, he probably wouldn't have done it. I see. They stood in silence for a moment, though Izuku could tell he had more to say. Do you know what quirk marriages are? They stood in silence again as Todoroki finished. Izuku didn't really know what to say. He remembered that woman and how she treated him. He remembered how his dad treated him and how he went away. He could relate to that at least. I'm sorry, Todoroki. He paused again. Think his next words over carefully. He had already known all of this thanks to Dabi. I don't really know how I can help other than proving you wrong. The other was about to argue before Izuku stopped him. I understand why and how you see things the way they are, but sometimes you can be blinded by emotions. He walked out of the corridor, leaving Todoroki in shock, in confusion. Once he knew he was far enough away and no one else was around, he grabbed his phone and dialed a number. Dabi, hey, that you want to see your brother again, right? Next up, we have our 1v1s. First up is Shinso Hitoshi, who we haven't seen much of, versus Midoriya Izuku, who's been taking this festival by storm as a support corps student. The crowd seemed a little shocked at that as the two walked onto the stage. I'm not that surprised they put us against each other first. Izuku lifted an eyebrow. Really? I thought they might put me against Mimi first, sort of like a which support is better thing. Shinso seemed a little shocked that he responded, even though the round hadn't started yet. Well, with how you're doing, they'll use me as an example, a reason you should be in the hero course and why I shouldn't be. Izuku frowned a little at the comment. But you earned your spot, right? And I don't really want to be in the hero course all that much. He shrugged his shoulders a little. What? Why not? Izuku smiled a little. I already do everything a hero does, I just don't get paid for it. Shinso facepalmed. Right, Vigilante, you're at an advantage anyway then. Izuku shrugged again before getting into a fighting position. Go! Izuku ran forward as Shinso took a small step back before glaring. You won't use your quirk? Too weak for you? Izuku frowned a little, though he knew he shouldn't respond. Won't even respond? Of course you wouldn't, you've been flying through life, strong quirk, already a hero, you probably have everything, don't you? Shinso, I don't dash. Shinso smirked as Izuku fell under his quirk. Izuku felt like groaning when he realized what had happened, though he still didn't want Shinso to think he was weak. Be a hero and walk out of bounds, okay? Izuku felt his body turn and start slowly walking out of bounds like Shinso told him to. I can't believe I fell for that. He tried to think of a way out when he realized something. It should be simple to break out of the brainwashing, right? He dragged more energy from the ground before creating a whip and making it wrap around his legs, making him trip, knocking him out of the quirk. What? He turned to Shinso and made the whip disappear. How did you do that? Izuku only smiled before running back at him. He grabbed the other and spun him a little before kneeing him in the stomach, knocking the air out of him. Shinso tried to fight back a little, but Izuku was too experienced for him to gain any ground on the fight until he was flipped out of bounds. Midoriya, Izuku wins. As they walked out of the arena, Izuku jogged up to Shinso. Shinso! The other turned a little confused to him. When you were trying to get an answer out of me, I just wanted to tell you that isn't how it is. Shinso lifted an eyebrow before fully focusing on him. When I was younger and my quirk hadn't appeared my mother wasn't exactly the best, my dad took me away and it was good until there was a villain attack. It's actually the reason I'm blind and missing an arm. My dad died saving people, it's why I became a vigilante. Izuku only smiled and shook his head. It's okay. You didn't know and you wanted a response out of me, I forgive you. He left the other in the hall and went back with the other support students. Hey guys. I made a Discord server. I would love to see you all there. Hey. I fixed the link so it doesn't expire. You wanna join the Discord, just click it. https discord.ggvkvdsn. Izuku knew he was playing a dangerous game. He knew how Dabi could get when it came to his family and also knew how dangerous it could get in general. When he had talked to Dabi over the phone, the other had given him ideas and a plan to help his little brother. Izuku, what are you talking about? He sighed a little and repeated himself. You want to see your brother again, right? Like so he knows you're alive and you can actually have a relationship not based on your SPRM donor's mistakes. Of course I do. What do you mean? Izuku thought about how to explain everything to the other. He took a deep breath before speaking again, trying to get some of the energy out of him to focus. He told me everything. I already knew because you told me, but it's how he told me. He looked around a little. He could still see an energy hidden behind the wall but ignored it, recognizing the small energy around the ears as Bakugu. He told me he didn't see me as a threat, like I was an obstacle in his way to prove a point to someone. He looked to the auditorium. He couldn't pinpoint the fire user, but he knew he was there. I have a feeling as to who, but I don't think it'll work. You're right, kid. Look, I never wanted you in my family drama, alright? Izuku hummed. They had talked about it before. Izuku didn't like the thought of killing, but Endeavor always made him want to toe the line. Just see what you can do, okay? I don't want him hurt. Dabi. How far do you want me to push it? The other was silent on the line, but he felt like he already knew the answer. Just help him, please? And try not to hurt yourself or him too much. Izuku laughed a little. I won't promise much, but I'll heal us a little at least. He heard Dabi laugh a little before he answered. Thanks, kid. If you can, bring him over sometime, alright? Wouldn't mind seeing the little rascal. Izuku smiled and nodded with a hum. I will this weekend. Izuku stood with Mei as she picked up the rest of her equipment. He knew what she was going to do with her round with Ida, and he was honestly excited. Hell, he had helped with the taking over of the mics. All he had to do was solidify the connection from his arm. Thanks for the help, Zuzu. He smiled and nodded, getting the connection ready. Of course. I'm happy to help whenever you're ready. She nodded as they sat back down. He knew that his match with Todoroki was coming up, but he was a little nervous. He knew whatever the other threw at him he could easily deal with. It wasn't his first time dealing with an elemental quirk, but it was the first time dealing with someone who needed the help he did. Do you have a PLA for your fight with Cold Boy? Izuku laughed a little at the name. Sorta. I have an idea of what I need to do. Mei stared at him before looking back to the center. Alright, I trust you. Izuku's eyes widened a little as he looked at her. He smiled a little before looking forward again. Izuku stood in the hall, taking a few deep breaths. This had to work. He knew Dabi wouldn't blame him if he couldn't help the other, but he would blame himself. He wanted to be like his dad, save everyone you could, even if you couldn't save yourself. He knew the others hated it when he talked like that, but it's how it worked in his head. He saved who he could as a vigilante and had almost died multiple times from a fight or protecting someone. He was just lucky to have his quirk honestly. Next up, Todoroki of Class 1A. Giving everyone the cold shoulder. Going against Midoriya of the support class. Shocking everyone with his quirk and fighting. Izuku smiled as they both walked up to the area. You know, Todoroki, you won't be able to win against me with just your ice. It was true, even though ice had low energy he could still take some, and from the ground, he even still had energy stored. This your plan then? Mocking me? Izuku tilted his head a little before shaking it. No, but I told you I would prove you wrong. Todoroki practically growled at him. Go! Izuku jumped over the ice, placing a hand on it to take the energy before landing. He didn't get much time to breath as Todoroki launched another wave of ice at him. He did the same as before, but this time he reeled his fist back and broke it. It was more difficult since he took all the energy, making it colder, but he was able to clear some room for himself. It wouldn't be good to fight him with the ground covered in ice. I'm not mocking you, Todoroki. He spun a little before kicking his leg down and broke another wave of ice. I'm trying to help. I'm not the blind one here. He knew it was a stupid joke, but it was true. With how Todoroki had been living his life, he wasn't seeing things clearly for what they were. You don't know anything. He shot a larger wave of ice, forcing Izuku back before he broke through it and made his way to Todoroki. He hit the other with his flesh hand before grabbing him and flinging him over his shoulder. I know more than you think, Todoroki. It was ominous, but he wanted the other to think, you're not the only one with issues, Todoroki. The other froze a little before pushing Izuku back again. Shut up. Izuku growled as he broke the ice again. You're shivering, Todoroki. The other sneered at him. Izuku knew what he was doing. He hoped, I've talked to Tuya. The other paused at that and stared at him. He's watching us right now. After our talk, I called him. The other didn't move as Izuku talked. You're not the only person I've had to help, Todoroki. Let me help you. I'm not using his quirk. Izuku groaned as the two fought hand to hand, with Izuku winning so far. It's not his. He punctuated the sentence with a punch to the stomach. It's not his. It's yours. If you can't think of it that way, then it's Tuya's. It doesn't matter. But it's not his. He knew he struck a chord, finally, with the other when he stopped moving and the energy around him began to grow. Midoriya? He smiled as the energy got brighter. He could hear people begin to cheer, you're crazy. Izuku chuckled as he shifted, putting his metal arm first as he centered himself, dragging as much energy as possible to him, making the green lightning crackle around him. You aren't the first to tell me that. The two stared at each other before charging. Someone stop them. They'll destroy the place. Izuku only smiled brighter as he heard and saw people start to move to stop them, but he knew they weren't going to make it. You still lose, Todoroki. The two clashed in a storm of fire and lightning, destroying the concrete underneath them. And the winner is Dash. Mei was frozen to her seat, unable to see the arena floor, even with her quirk. And the winner is Midoriya. The fog slowly left, showing Izuku just barely inside the line while Todoroki had crossed it to stop himself. The two teens stared at each other for what felt like ages before they snapped back to reality. Izuku smiled and ran over to Todoroki, offering his hand. That was great. I almost lost there. Todoroki looked at the hand before shaking it. You were impressive. Izuku giggled before letting go and whispering. If you want to see Tuya meet up with me after, I'm sure he'd love to catch up. Todoroki stood there shocked before nodding. Zuzu. Mei tackled Izuku into a suffocating hug. I knew you were a god, but holy shit. Did you see that? You were all like whoosh. Boom. Blam. And he tried to be all like bloom. Stw. But then you dash. Izuku smiled as Mei rambled on and on about the fight, throwing in some ideas about support items they could make to counteract certain moves or quirks. I think the heating and cooling system would be a good idea though. I've made a prototype before and I think we should explore it more. Mei nodded along, scribbling the ideas in their shared notebook. I agree, maybe add something so it isn't obvious what it is and isn't targeted, especially if the hero needs it to live. Good point. Izuku stopped when he felt someone coming, recognizing the light he smiled. Hello Bakugo. Do you need something? Fucking follow me. Bakugo began to walk away as Izuku turned to Mei. I'll be back. He followed the other teen to an empty hall. You know you're the second person to lead me to an empty hall. He looked to Bakugo with a small smile though. I know you were there. I may be blind but I can still see you. Why the hell aren't you in the hero course? Izuku froze. What? Why aren't you in the FING hero course? I've seen you fight and it ain't shit. You've kicked everyone's butts. You're a vigilante. Why the hell aren't you in the hero course? He cornered Izuku against the wall. It got hard to see with a light so bright and close. Effing answer the question. Izuku felt himself freeze for a second before energy built up around him. Stop yelling. As he screamed, a small shock wave let off, cracking the ground around him, making Bakugo step back. You want to know why I'm not a hero? Because they can't save everyone. He took a few breaths, feeling tears come to his eyes. I had to deal with her for so long. When we finally got away, I lost my dad. He died because the heroes could do their FING jobs. Too busy trying to catch the spotlight to save a man who was saving others for free. Izuku glared as energy crackled around him. I save people the heroes forget, who aren't in good neighborhoods. You can't smile as they bleed out just because you don't see them. So I save them when they're too busy goofing off. Izuku knew all heroes weren't like that. Aizawa, Midnight, Present Mike, a small few who wanted to help people because they could. He looked back to Bakugo. That's a dumb reason, but keep wasting your time. I don't give a shit. More room for me. Izuku felt himself begin to shake with anger. A dumb reason? He whispered to himself. He glared at Bakugo. A dumb reason is wanting to be the best because mommy and daddy said you could, because no one humbled you when you were 4. That's a dumb reason. He pushed past the other and began walking away. I hope I can fix it before you become a real problem. Izuku knew who he was fighting next. He also knew he wasn't dumb either. Since they fought before the sports festival, Bakugo likely had a good read on his style and how his quirk worked. All he would have to do is mix it up enough to be a surprise. He stretched his arm a bit before touching the ground and draping energy from under the concrete. The other knew he was blind, half of his limbs were fake. He had enough skill to be a high-level vigilante, could take down most enemies easily, and could fight with one arm. Bakugo would likely try to stay as far away from Izuku as possible, letting him waste his own energy before overloading him with energy. With any normal energy quirk it would work well and could knock the person out, but not with Izuku's. He had dealt with that problem before. When he felt too overwhelmed was when his body let off the lightning, creating a defense and letting off enough energy to stay awake and powerful. It was an easy trick that got almost everyone. For our final match, we have Midoriya, a mechanic with more than one surprise up his sleeve, and Bakugo, the Class 1A killer. Izuku winced a little at the name, while Bakugo had been easily taking everyone out. It seemed rude and painted him like a villain to call him a killer. You ready to lose, dumbass? Bakugo asked as he walked up to the stage. Izuku rolled his shoulders and shrugged. I don't know, what about you? You seem pretty confident for someone who was beaten on the first try. Izuku could see the anger already bubbling up, hiding his smirk as they began counting down. 3, 2, 1, go! As soon as Present Mike shouted, Bakugo shot off into the air. Izuku had been right then. He created a whip and used it to wrap around Bakugo's waist before yanking and slamming him onto the ground. I thought the best didn't run, Bakugo. He made the whip disappear, not before stealing a small amount of energy, not enough to notice but enough to affect him later. I was hoping to at least make you look a little good. Being kind and all that shit. But if you want to fight then I'll be more than happy. Izuku jumped to the side as Bakugo slammed his fist onto the ground. He smirked, stealing the energy from the ground before spinning and axe-kicking Bakugo to the ground. Oh, how kind of you. What would I do without you? He knew it was ticking the other off with how little he was hitting Izuku or seeming to affect him. The one thing he could rely on was that Bakugo wasn't the type to use someone's psychological weaknesses against them. If he was, then he would want to use it soon. Izuku created the whip again and flung him almost out of the ring before pulling him back, slamming his knee into the other's stomach before letting him drop. You know, Bakugo, you're smart, strong, a great fighter, and you might be a great hero one day. The other coughed as he spoke. but you're also an idiot. He punched the other with his metal fist, effectively knocking him out. He stood up and lifted his other arm as the crowd cheered and Midnight called the winner. He didn't bother healing the blonde as he walked out of the ring, seeing Mei jump up and down excitedly. You did it. Mei tackled him into another hug. I knew you could do it. I only befriend the best. Izuku giggled before letting Mei lead him to the nurse's room, but we're getting you checked. Izuku sat on top of the roof, his legs pulled up to his chest as he looked over the city. I don't think I see most people up here at this hour. He didn't move, already knowing Midnight was there, at least for good reasons. Letting his eyes move to where her light was, he stared for a moment before looking away. I'm not gonna jump or anything. I know. She sat down next to him, not close enough to make him uncomfortable, but just to appear as a comforting present for him, but I figured I'd check in anyway. They sat there, looking as the sun set over the buildings, casting a golden light on them, not that Izuku could tell exactly, just seeing a large ball of light. I don't remember what she looks like. Midnight didn't say anything, letting him talk. I only remember what her voice sounded like, mostly the tone, but that's all I remember, that's all I can remember. Do you want to remember more? No, he let his legs stretch out. I don't want happy memories of her, it'd be pointless. But, I don't remember what he looks like either. Rubbing a hand over his eyes he continued, I can't remember what color his hair was or what he sounded like when he was happy. I can only remember him telling me to run. Tell me what you do remember then. He looked to the pro hero confused. He sounds like a good man, maybe if you talk you'll remember more. There was a villain attack. Izuku let his eyes settle on the lights below them. I don't remember much, just screaming and people running while Dad helped me. I remember him telling me to run and wait for him to come back. He wanted to help people that were trapped. I don't know how he died, I just know he didn't come back. What about your mom? Izuku glared at his hands. I pray she's dead. She made our lives hell for the fun of it. I hope it was painful, and I hope she was alone. Midnight rested a hand on his shoulder before slowly pulling him to her chest. I'm sorry no one helped you. That's why I don't want to be a hero. He let her hold him. Why you and the others are fine, great even, but so many of them don't help. They let good people die because they didn't get news coverage for the save. Maybe you can change that then. He sat up and stared at her. One great hero makes all the difference. It saves another life. He could tell by her tone that she didn't really believe that. They put me in the hero course. With a sigh she hugged him again. Nedzu thinks it's best. It would look bad for the school if you weren't. Just another news story to make the heroes look good. When Izuku got to school the next morning he ignored everyone, changing his clothes, and went straight to the class he wanted to be in. Izuku, he cut Power Loader off. I haven't dropped this class. If they want me to be in the hero course they can drag me kicking and screaming. He heard his teacher laugh before his classmates started cheering. That's right, Beaches. You gotta take him from us. Mei cheered, getting the others more and more riled up. All right. Everyone settle down. We still have work to do. The class cheered, but for a different reason. They get to work. Is there a reason Izuku wasn't in my class this morning? Aizawa asked Power Loader, who was smirking too wide to be innocent. Well, he said you would have to drag him kicking and screaming. He doesn't want to be a hero. I'm not gonna force him. The underground hero stared down at the other, though there was no heat behind it. Sounds good to me, one less problem. Nedzu watched his staff through the cameras. The man on the phone grumbled at the video he was shown. Then you drag him. The public needs a new hero. He doesn't get a choice. No. Power Loader glared. He's happy where he is and I'm not going to force him to change. If you want to then you can try all you want but someone else will stop you too.